probably from 85 to 90, we did the most shows. That would be club shows, festival shows, and I also had this thing, and we're talking a lot about this because of the hip hop museum exhibit that's going to happen in my city is like, I had this vision that it ain't just about us as b-boys. I bought into the idea that I'm good at getting gigs and getting paid and negotiating. I'm going to use that to bring my MC friends, my beatbox friends, my DJ friends. We all eat together. So I'll give you an example.
Hey guys, press that like button and don't forget to subscribe and press that bell notification.
The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Flash Talks. I go by the name of Flashback, and this is history worth listening to. This evening, we're going to dive in with someone so special, all the way from Canada. He goes by the name of Stephen Leafloor, a.k.a. Buddah. He was born in Ottawa, Canada, and was there when breaking in the 80s was at the peak, at the highest. This brother danced for James Brown, George Clinton, Ice-T. He also did a Masters Thesis on hip-hop in 1988, all the way back in the 80s. He's also contributed to a number of books on hip-hop. He's a social worker and a mental health advocate running Canada's largest healing program using hip-hop in youth prisons, Ashoka Fellow and recipient of the Meritorious, Silver Cross, consultant to the Cirque Du Soliel. Like, come on now. And is a father of 3. With the blessing of the Floor Masters from New York City, he's the co-founder of the Canadian Floor Masters with Quick. This evening, we dive into learning the history of B-boys and B-girls from Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you Buddah! What's going on, brother?
That's nice, man. Thank you for that. I'm gonna jump on like Clown did because I thought that was beautiful where he went. I want to give you your flowers right at the front end. So I'm sending you some Canadian flowers at the front end because this is gonna grow and grow, and people appreciate the effort that you're putting into this to capture stories because it all saddens our hearts when a brother or sister dies from the older generations or from the younger generations. But you know what I mean? There's only so many opportunities, and we feel very respected that people might be interested in hearing a little bit of what it was like many years ago. So
Yes, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And then the reason why I'm doing that's one of the reasons, because I always feel that people always, like, as soon as a brother passes, now everyone wants to post on Facebook and show pictures and videos. But when they were alive, nobody shares anything.
Right.
Like, nobody gives them the flowers and just talks about them, because it's like, what I know, what I realize in hip hop, one of the things is, if you got a good name for that moment, your name is there. Enjoy, appreciate it. But once the new person comes in, you're forgotten. People just keep moving. Unless you're constantly in the scene proving to the world over and over, like your name Buddah, you show up when you're 40, you show up when you're 50, now you're in your 60s, you probably still show up and your name is out there. And let me tell you one thing, your name has been mentioned my whole entire career. I've heard of your name. I've seen footage. I've heard it. And it's crazy that now we're in 2023. And it's just amazing just to know that a brother like yourself could tell your story and just tell all the amazing things you accomplished. And like, a lot of people weren't there in the 80s. There's a lot of young b-boys and b-girls that don't even know what living in the 80s is, what breaking in the 80s is, performing, traveling. So thank you for coming on the show, man.
we were blessed because I always talk about kind of these triangles, like in that there was kind of a triangle with Boston, Philly, and New York, and there's another triangle in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. Connected, these triangles touching each other. And so for many people's families, it was not uncommon for someone to be at a block party in the Bronx and bring the mixtape 2 days later to Montreal or to Ottawa or Toronto. Or just like us when we started getting to know the New York City Breakers, to go there because we're just like, we're so excited about this young culture. Well, we got to go to the Bronx, and then once we started this relationship with some of the New York City Breakers, then Wayne would go down and stay at Pexter's house, and we went down and stayed at Flip Rock's house, and we went out one night to the World and had a battle with some crew from Brooklyn, and we had Flip Rock on our side, so we were like all cocky about that shit, Holman.
And I could imagine, but we're gonna get into that because oh my God, I imagine the stories you have, and that's what we're here. But we're gonna start it off with the beginning.
Okay.
How were you introduced into the hip hop culture? And I want you to tell me, even before you heard rap, before you saw graffiti. Let's take Buddah when you were 10 years old, just a little kid, doing your thing in Canada, and then you take us from right there, right before you saw anything.
Yeah, I call it my pre-hip hop story because it's still driven by the music, but you got to understand, like, I was a little kid from a big family of 9, and my dad was a United Church minister.
Okay.
So I live in Saskatchewan out on the prairies. There's one TV station. It's got like Don Messer's Jubilee. These are guys like playing fiddles and stuff. And it's got like Rex Humbard religious TV. And then all of a sudden, when I was 14, we moved down to Southern Ontario. Like, Windsor is right across from Detroit. So I moved close to Windsor. My world changed because now with rabbit ears on your TV, you can get Detroit, Cleveland, Toledo, all the stations there, London and Windsor. So now you're getting like 30 stations on TV. This is before cable or anything, right? And the music is different. All of a sudden, it's all that 70s funk, So I grew up going from Saskatchewan, moving to Southern Ontario, grade 9. So I'm just entering high school. I'm the new kid. I'm the smallest kid, smaller than any of the girls, any of the guys, smallest kid of like 1,500 students in this school. So new kids get bullied, And so that was my story. Like, my pre-hip hop story for me is really important. I share it with like kids in the prisons and stuff, and they often tell me, I usually tell it first day I'm working in a prison, and they often come to me and go, "Yo, Buddah, I felt like you were telling my story." And I always say it's a story about rage, not just anger. To me, there's a different, like rage is a lot of people will understand what rage is. It's like out of control, not controlling my impulses. Somebody will go down, somebody will get hurt. Maybe I'll think about it afterwards, you know. And the bullying I experienced, like I'm just like anybody else. I'm 14. I got long blonde hair. I look like a little girl.
Now, was this around this time right here?
That's it, baby. Yeah. And see, this pissed me off because that's my younger sister. So that's my younger sister, Lorene, and she's taller than me. And everybody loves her at the school. You know what I mean? She's track star. She's blossom queen. So like when I got bullied, well, then you bully people at home, right? Or you're mean to your pets or whatever it is. So I would come home and she'd watch TV and I'd be like, turn off the TV. She'd walk by me, boom, I'd give her a shot in there. You know, what are you going to do? Go cry to mom and dad, blah, blah. Like I was an asshole, but it's just because like when you're raging and hurting inside, it's got to come out somewhere. So, I mean, I'll just give you some examples, like, you know, because many people are bullied and I don't want to play the victim card. You know what I mean? But I've spent my life dealing with my own anger and rage because like it's got consequences. You know, when you have children of your own and stuff, you don't want to be yelling and punching holes in walls and stuff like that. You gotta, and you don't want to die an angry man. Like I decided that a number of years ago. I'm not going to go out like that. Even if I just marginally a little bit get better at my anger every year, that's what I want to do, you know. But they would do things like I remember a number of times, you know, imagine the cafeteria and there's 500 people in the cafeteria and they got the giant garbage cans. And these guys looked at me and they're like, who's that tiny little kid? Damn, he's so small, we could put him in the garbage and nobody will notice. And so they picked me up and they shoved me deep down into the garbage and 500 people laugh. You know, you lose your fucking mind over that. I'm like, so I act like the tough little kid. I'm going to crawl out of the garbage. I'm going to wipe off the ketchup and mustard and kind of go, ha, 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 like laugh it off. Inside, I'm like, I'm going to fucking get you someday, you know? Like, I'm just raging. And the worst was, so lots of things. They get me in the corner, be punching me in the arms. You know, I go home, my arms are all bruised up. I would never tell my parents. But then again, I was being a little asshole in the home life. So I was causing stress and upsetting my mother. And my dad was so busy being a minister to everybody else, he wasn't checking in. Like, really, he should have come to me and said, yo, something wrong with my son. He's angry. He never did that. I would just get the belt or something when he come home because I'm upset in the home front. So the worst one that I really freaked out on was, you know what a wedgie is? They grab your underwear.
Yes, definitely.
And so there's the hall and all the cool kids, all the prettiest girls are hanging in the hall. And they give me a wedgie and lift me so high in the air, they rip the underwear out of my ass. And then they hold it up to show all the girls. And they throw my underwear down the hall. So I would get home and I started doing drugs, you know, just to zone out. I'm getting high all the time. And I also started doing lots of break and enters, you know, the kind where, I mean, technically, if you want something, you should not want to get caught. You should be a ninja. whereas when you're really hurt, you kind of throw your life to fate. And you're like, if I'm supposed to die, I die. If I'm supposed to get caught, I get caught. I just don't give a shit because I don't believe in the world that cares about me anymore. So my break and enters would just roll up and kick in the doors, you know, to stupid places like the donut shop, you know. So then I'm like the hero. We run up and we're 14, 15 and, you know, we steal 100 boxes of donuts. Well, who needs 100 boxes of donuts? You're just being a little misfit. You know what I mean? You take your donuts, you go down to the
rage is coming out.
Yeah. You know, and I remember lying in bed. It was almost like having the devil and the angel on your shoulders, you know, and I'm talking to myself and I'm going like, well, what do you think of those boys? I'm going to get them someday, you know. You know, I'm good. And because I remember when Columbine later happened too, even like when Columbine happened, just to kind of capsulate the rage, I fucking got it. I got it. Like, I didn't have access to a gun. If I would have had a gun, I think there would have been a reasonable chance that I could have done something really stupid that would change my life forever. So that's how severe it can be to people, you know? So anyways, I'm lying in bed high. And when you're really high, you know, you have conversations with yourself. And I'm, the angel is kind of saying, well, what do you like to do? You're good at some things. What do you like to do? And I was like, oh man, I love to roller skate. I'm good at it. And I love the roller rink. And we would skate like 6 nights a week of 7, go to different little towns, because also it was all the Isley Brothers and George Clinton and Earth, Wind and Fire and Average White Band, all the stuff we wanted to hear, you know? And it was the social gathering where like you could roll up when they drop the lights and they put Marvin on or something, you could ask some ladies to skate. So to me, it was kind of like the original block party, you know, not that I went to block parties later. I mean, we had some in our city later, but the roller rink was that atmosphere of teenage hormones, a mix, and then the music, and then the swag. You could show off. You could strut your stuff. That's kind of similar to hip hop, you know, in the early days. So anyways, the angel is saying, well, what do you like to do? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a good roller skater. I should just get better at that. And the devil is saying, yeah, but the bullies are there. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm a good skater and I love it too much. I'm not going to stop going. Yeah, but the bullies are there. Yeah, but the pretty girls are there too. And the pretty girls want to skate with the best skaters. And then it was like a light went off in my head. Even though I was really high, it was like, then I just got to be the illest little roller skater that the entire area has ever seen. And then all the pretty girls will skate with me. And that's how I'll smoke them. And when I think about it, that was kind of like an early anger channeling thing that I took, which many B-boys also took. It's kind of like, you know, fuck you. I'm going to regain my status and my power and show you who I am and be like a hood celebrity or whatever it is, you know, and I'm going to be popular with the ladies, because that's pretty important when you're a teenager. So I remember, and I was also influenced by seeing the swag of other people. So I just want to tell you a story about what it was like. Like we go to Chatham, and there would be crews from Detroit that would come over, and they're skate crews, and they have shirts on that say Rink Rockers. So that's the crew. This might be an all black crew, and they got their fro makes them another foot taller, and they got a Black Panther pick stuck in it. And they're strutting. We used to call it like trucking. There used to be those old posters like keep on trucking. So on roller skates, you like strut out here. But you're doing it to the beats, right? You're dancing. And I'd see those guys and I was like, look how cool they are. Like, I want to be like that, you know? And then I went to my first concert too. When about that time I went to, I had black friends who had a cottage up in Canada from Detroit. And they said, look, KC and the Sunshine Band and Average White Band are going to play at Cobo Hall. Why don't you come? It'll largely be a black concert. Like there were maybe 10% white kids there, you know. But my parents didn't want me to go because there'd been gang violence at previous concerts. There'd been Aeroflins and BKs fighting it out. And these are big gangs at that time. The Aeroflins, you know, a couple thousand strong in Detroit. So imagine I'm up in the balcony. Average White Band already played. So they played like Pick Up the Pieces, Schoolboy Crush, all these dope jams. So KC is coming on and they're doing, you know, the stuff with the saxophones in a line. And about 100 Aeroflins came strutting in and the concert floor opened up. And I was like, oh shit, people were right. This is going to be messy, you know? And they were wearing orange bowler hats and canes, kind of pimp walking. And 100 gang members came in. And they didn't cause any shit. They just did the hustle to
wow.
AC doing do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. So then again, that blew my mind. I'm like, that's fucking swag. I want that. Not that I wanted to be a gang member, but I wanted the swag that they commended, the presence that they commended on the dance floor. So I call it go back to the lab. After this internal conversation in my head, I'd steal the keys to the church from my dad. I'd go and I'd set up tables and I would roller skate, kind of like you would practice skateboarding. I'd jump up on tables and do spins and all this. And I taught myself how to do back handsprings on roller skates, you know?
Wow.
So
how old were you? How old?
I was maybe by then I was about 15. You know, this would be 1974, 74, 75, 76. And so I combined dance and roller skate. Like, not that I knew how to really lock, but we're watching lots of Shields in Your Now, lots of Soul Train, you know, people doing locker points and stuff. Well, you could do those on roller skates, right? And in fact, there was a show just like Soul Train called Roller Funk out of Detroit, where they would actually do like an Apache line, but everybody's on roller skates and people go down the middle and do their thing, you know? So on skates, you're going to jump into the splits a lot and press and spin up. So my best deal was literally, I could go, if you didn't go in the middle of the roller rink unless you were good, unless you fucking kind of had extra level, and that was show off zone, you know? So I could fly down the middle, spinning fast on one foot, and then I would dive into round off. I could do 2 back handsprings, jump up into the splits, press out of the splits, spin, jump up and do locker jump, and trust me, everything in my inside, I'd just look straight at the bullies like, what you got? And that was my first experience of swag in your face.
And how was the reaction of the people the first time you did that?
Like, even those crews from Detroit, the rink rocker crews that would come and stuff, they were like, holy fuck, look at the little white guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's like a demon on roller skates, you know? And so at the time, then dance contests started happening, and some a little bit further north was more disco, but towards Detroit was more funk. And I remember maybe I was 16, me and a girl, not a girlfriend, but she could do backflips too. So we entered a dance contest. 1,000 couples were entered in this contest, and we made it to the top 20, the youngest group. We didn't win, you know what I mean? But
that's still good. That's still good.
We danced to Serpentine Fire by Earth, Wind, and Fire and stuff. And we did kind of a little bit of locking in, like, you know, back handsprings into the splits, and we had like orange Adidas tops and this thing. So very quickly I became, because in high school dances, people used to roll from one high school to the next to their dance. Mm-hmm. And one dance, a couple came in from another school and started strutting it on the dance floor, you know, kind of acting like they were all that. And then all of a sudden the whole school was like, well, let's send out Steve. And you know, and so I kind of got my status back by being the roller skater and the dancer. And then later, when I saw b-boying, like the first time I saw backspin, it was just a continuation of that. It was like, what the fuck was that? I don't know what that was, but I. Do
you see it on TV, or you saw it on you saw it live?
I saw it. I probably saw it in. I probably saw it in Wild Style, maybe Wild Style or Style Wars. I mean, later I saw it. Of course, everybody saw Flashdance and then later Beat Street and stuff. But we were already turned on to people are doing some really creative dance movement, you know. And
you didn't know it was breaking. You just
I didn't even know. Really cool. And kind of like, you know, those are kind of documentaries, so they kind of educate you on like, this is early hip hop emerging, and so you learn about it. I was already hooked by the music. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like the original Fight the Power by the Isley Brothers or something.
Yes.
You know, before Public Enemy and stuff and things like that. Like, these are really dope tracks with great bass and stuff, you know. And so even when I went to university, you know, I stood out because I danced. You know, people like I went to university that had a lot of private school kids, you know. I didn't even know private schools existed until I went there, because I was from a relatively poor, big family, you know. And all of a sudden I was confident, you know, and that confidence continued. And then eventually I was like, my first crew was Freestyle Express, and I wanted to build the best crew in Ottawa. There's lots of stories about how we the Kid Quick's better to tell that one about how we had to take out the local crew that was Kingpin, called Dynamic Crew, largely a Filipino crew, But I put our crew together based on talent. In some ways, like when I talk a lot to Holman, there's a lot of similarities between me and Holman. I was older, so I started late as a b-boy. I was 22, 23, and most of my crew were the younger age of 15 at that time, which would be the age of Pexter and lots of the Rocksteady and this and that. There'd be some older ones in there, but I didn't want to be their friends because I'm like, who wants to hang around with a 15-year-old? You know what I mean? They're embarrassing. You're not sneaking them in the club, even if you can, because they're immature. They're going to say stupid things around women, whatever. Mm-hmm. Later, as they grew older, we became good friends. But in the beginning, I just wanted to build a crew that would smoke everybody. And so he's got the fastest windmill in town. He's got the first flares. He's got the whatever. And our crew name, which is kind of neat to quickly tell about. There was one guy in our crew, this young black youth, Sheldon Thomas, who had moved from the Bronx to my city, and he was in our early crew. He was a good dancer. He had the first flares in my city, and we're looking for a name, and he's like, "Yeah, back home there's a crew called the Floor Masters. They'll never know. Why don't we call ourselves the Canadian Floor Masters?" We just straight up stomped it.
He's the first one that mentioned it to you?
Yeah, we didn't know, right? So
what year? What year is that?
This is probably 83 when we formed the crew, right? And we'd already been dancing for a year or two in there.
Now, were you being bullied still or not?
No, that's just high school.
High school, and then you claimed your name as like you're pretty dope. You got certain, because I want to go back to that. That's very important to know because you got kids watching the show and maybe they're going through the same situation when you were that age, that they're getting bullied. And I remember when you mentioned, which is critical to this, when you said that you showed up and you did your flips and you did the locking point, all that, and you looked at the bullies, did they started respecting you after that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I remember once one of the main bullies, I'm drunk at the local parties at someone's house, and I'm so pissed. I went up and picked the fight. I just sucker punched him because I was drunk and he was such a bully. So, rightly so, he cold cocks me back. Now I got my eye out to here, a big black eye, right? So, but here's the dynamic. Then you roll up and go to school on Monday morning, and all the girls are going, "Well, who would beat up Steve? He's half the size of everybody else," because I'm walking around with this big black eye. And now all of a sudden the message was to the guys, it ain't cool to beat up on a little guy, even though I started the fight. But I started the fight because he'd been a bully to me for so long. And when you're drunk, you just don't care. You
got the liquid courage, and you
got the liquid courage. You're just gonna go at it. So my high school wasn't all bad. I kind of reclaimed myself and established myself, but I had to fight for that, and that's an important life lesson for me. Is that which kind of like when. Because I've been in this, I've seen so many dancers over the years grow and have children and everything. And it's like, I think our spidey sense inside, even if we haven't academically ripped it apart in our brain about why we have to do this and it's part of our healing and our spidey sense is, nah, something tells me I need this shit. And this is why I don't get too angry with young people that are too egotistical a bit, because sometimes they got to be egotistical at the front end because they're actually reclaiming a sense of self. You know what I mean? But once you got your sense of self, now it's time to humble your ass again
and control it
and think about maybe giving back and think about your place in the world. Because I get it. It's many years of steps of healing if you've been kind of beaten down and put down or racialized or whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff that can mess you up when you're young. But again, like if you love it so much, just like you kind of like, I get the sense that this is you, if you loved it so much and it meant so much to Flash, how can you give back? Well, this is why you're doing what you do. This is why a lot of my programming and I work about, I actually have dissected about, well, what's the dynamic that's going on about learning self-control. Even if I don't have control, I can have control make my bed in the morning. I can have control in the cipher. I can have control with some of my comedy. Slow ways that you can build yourself up. And it's crucial because otherwise you could just stay at an angry state your whole life. And that'll affect, now at some point your children won't want to talk to you. At some point, like, trust me, I've sat in council over beers with old B-boys.
And that's if you get to have a kid or anything, because maybe you don't even make it that far to even be married or find a nice lady or whatever is the case.
You could be sabotaging your life all over the place and not even know it. And so I'm not big on psychology and people like kind of overanalyzing this, that, but there's a lot of natural healing things that have happened in our culture that I feel we don't talk and celebrate enough.
Absolutely.
Which that's a whole other story about the Olympics, but I'm like, that's a fucking big backstory, right? That's a big backstory. Yeah, of course it's a big backstory about moves and who did this first and this and that. I think all that's important too. But I think some of the biggest backstory that makes this really unique is like, well, I don't see modern dance having outreach programs. I don't see ballet ever giving a shit. That was run from the King's Court. But something about this culture, which celebrates spiritualism for us as human beings, right, comes to the surface through the elements. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's why I joke, I'm like, I'm not some pathetic old guy who won't give up on the disco days. You know what I mean? It's because I still believe in the healing power and the ability of this to bring people together in a unique way, which has proven itself to me over and over again. Like the first time I met Pexter or Flip Rock or this and that, I was welcomed as a brother. I didn't feel like I was a tourist. I didn't feel like I was some fanboy or something, because they had also watched our videos. Apparently they took our video and watched it all at Chino's house, the whole crew.
And look at that. And back to the story when you said your boy from the Bronx that moved and mentioned to you Floor Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to that story, because it's so dope to hear how it all started. And then, whether you said, oh, that's pretty cool, let's do that. And how you got the blessings from the New York City.
Yeah, because the blessings came later, right? So imagine around 85, this is a few years later, we're already CFM, the Canadian Floor Masters and stuff. We already have gone and seen them wear their hind skins. So we had one-piece red and white tights custom made, like speed skating suits. You know what I mean? Our first tights were black too, like a two-piece.
Now, was this one of them? Boom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's us, man.
Dude, that is such a dope picture. And what I love is whoever's the photographer, did they know about to pose yet, or you guys were doing this?
No, you know what? That was in my house, in my living room. We just moved the furniture, and I just put the camera on timer.
So can you name all the brothers there? And I can see you in the top left.
So yeah, that's me with the Billy Idol hair. So straight across from me at the top, that's co-founder Kid Quick. And Kid Quick was known for like amazing fast footwork, like, mills to scrapes, things like that. Just below me is Dexter. That's Chris Aubrey. He was known, Dexter, for Dexterious. He was like flare both ways, mill both ways. You know what I mean? You just stop the mill and then just do a mill just as fast the other direction. Trevor, the black guy just below Wayne, I believe back in the time was the illest b-boy in Canada. Now, again, compared to nowadays b-boys, we can't hold a candle. But Trevor, he had them early bicycle head spins, or you just tap and then you put your arms on your waist and you just bicycle your legs and keep going. And I think the New York City Breakers like appreciated his combos. So like he would, because Trevor could flare, mill, up to head spin or something, and those were significant combos back in the like 85.
Absolutely,
Right?
that's way ahead. And right below him, who's that?
So that's Coach. So that's a whole nother little sidebar story. So Coach went on to he did a lot of flips like me. So if there were double flips happening and stuff, we would both do them. He is currently with Cirque Du Soleil for the past 20 years. And in
That's
fact, like,
amazing.
he helped put together the first b-boy act in the history of Cirque du Soleil with incredible Josh and Babo and Flying Buddah.
Wow, look at that. That's such a connection. Now, who's the one on the left of him?
So the small guy lying down there, we called him Beat Street Kid. So in our videos, he's the guy like Mills everywhere, like handcuff Mills, air Mills, just like, and his skin was thick like leather. Like he would literally could take his shirt off and do Mills on asphalt kind of thing. You know what I mean? Whereas all of us got like the bleeding friction scars from Mills.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
that's
like up on our shoulders,
I used to call it not the war scars, the battle scars.
Battle scars. Yeah, war wounds. Yeah.
Now you were mentioning that he was part of the Cirque du Soleil, the other dude. What was his name
Coach.
again?
Coach. So his
Coach.
b-boy name is Coach, yeah.
Okay, so now was he involved with putting the show together out here in Orlando, Florida?
Oh, well, he was the head trainer for the Lanuba show. So he even brought me down. So when I went down, I brought Crazy Smooth, who was second generation floor master. He was also part of what's the crew in New York with Nemesis and Whack and them?
Breaks crew.
Yeah. So Smooth is part of them also. So me, Smooth, Dazzle from Montreal, we go down and Venom hangs out with us. And then we also go off while we're down there. We're doing workshops that are mandatory for Cirque du Soleil.
What year was that?
20 years ago, probably be like 2000 or something.
Wow, that's amazing.
So what was cool about that was they had a problem. Like a Cirque show is like 10 acts from different groups around the world. So you might have the Russian acrobats. And another example would be maybe these young Chinese girls who do some juggling or something. And then they connect the acts with themes of music and something else, some storyline, and the clowns also help connect it. But for some of the show at the end, all the performers need to come down and they're face to face with the audience. And they were discovering that like the ones who had no personality were like the Russian acrobats and like, the Chinese and stuff. So like, we're typically the communist countries. So nobody could front with them on what they could do in terms of high trapeze or whatever it is. But they didn't have what we had, which was characters. So my job and it was to run workshops for 2 days that were mandatory to give them personality. So
wow,
which is a lot of like b-boy stance stuff and things, and so like
a presentation and just a character of how to perform,
all that, and like you just had Clown on, like Clown's a master of presence, right?
My God,
like how you do that, and I I've actually learned a lot from Clown. So like I would go around and get in front of the Russian acrobat's face and be like, no, I'm not moving. I'm going to stay here all day until I get something from you. Like, you got to work with me with your face, with your attitude, this and this. And the Russians were so nervous. They went into physiotherapy and they tried to get out of my workshop before we arrived. They were like, Vlad, bad wrist, Boris, hurt myself, can't do workshop. They're just scared because they don't dance. They're like high trapeze or whatever. And, by the end of the first day, like all the Russians insisted that I go drinking at a House of Blues with them, because now we're best friends. Because when you relax people, they can then
open them up. You open them up
out and stuff, So we did some of that, and I'm really proud of Matt. Matt doesn't look for compliments out there, but it's significant. Like Matt got me introduced to all the vice presidencies of the different departments at Cirque. So I'm invited to head office in Montreal, and I teach them a full day workshop so that they can understand the culture before they try to hire from the culture. So, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, well, no, otherwise you're going to get yourself in trouble if you don't understand where we're coming from and where our heart is at. And so you even if you want to get an MC or have live DJs as part of a show or whatever it is, you should understand our culture, because that's the respectful thing to do.
Absolutely.
So you know, when I did that, after that, they started auditioning people. So lots of B-boys and B-girls have had smaller parts added into shows. But the first standalone complete B-boy show was because Matt pushed for it, and Incredible Josh and Babo and Flying Boot. And you know, when I eventually got to meet some of these guys and stuff, they're like, they just love Matt and sing the praises of him, because he's like this humble guy, but he had this vision, you know what I mean? And even when Matt was touring with Kidam worldwide, he'd be in Paris, he'd be in Berlin or whatever. Matt would find out who the local street dancers were and get free tickets for them to come see the Cirque shows.
That's so dope.
Right? And so all this stuff
Yeah.
matters, because it doesn't always get talked about, but it celebrates who we are on our terms, you know?
Yeah, you're giving the respect to the dudes that were doing it before. Now, did Flying Buddha, Babo, and Incredible Josh, which I don't know if you know, but if you've been watching the show, Incredible Josh, that's like my little brother right there. Like,
Oh, damn.
yeah, Incredible Josh and myself, well, his family's Incredible Breakers. I got down with Incredible Breakers in 95, and I'm still Incredible Breakers to this day, because that's my fam. Chino, Brian, Sammy, rest in peace, Eddie. Like, I know the fam. I know everyone. Even before the grandmother passed away, also rest in peace, we will up rock. Like, she will up rock. Like,
That's
it's like
so
the
dope.
whole family was like literally B-boys and B-girls. Like,
See, so us just talking, we found these extra connections already. You know what I mean?
And it's amazing you just said that. And did they know? Do the three B-boys know about Matt, Coach, and the stuff that he did back then?
They slowly learned about that, you know, because again, Matt's not out there bragging and stuff, but like, they gave him respect. Now, Matt looks kind of preppy and stuff, you know, and he doesn't necessarily look like a B-boy.
Like, they won't believe, like, oh man, you're not no B-boy.
But like, there's some video. I don't know if it was, I don't think it was them. It was another crew on one of the cruise ships. But like, of any video of B-boying, this one has like 3 million hits.
That's him. That's on the Dream. That's
yeah. That's him who does that. That does the mill, like the Nutcracker mill. He does like a ninja.
I'm gonna post it right here so that people can see that part, because let me tell you,
doesn't that make you smile?
Oh man! Not only that, guess what? This is how small the world is, but how big it is at the same time. I was part of that crew, not on there, but I was part of the Fun Force. Mike Garcia,
Wow.
he had a show called Fun Force, which originally is G-Force, and we got hired on Carnival Cruise Line to do shows in different cruises. I was part of one of the cruises out here in Florida, and Dizzy, which is the MC, Dizzy from Motion Disorders crew from Milwaukee, he's a powerhead. He was on the mic. All those brothers that are there, the majority are from Florida, from out here.
That's so fun.
All of those cats, I know who all of them are.
And I had to post on that thread, because every once in a while people are like, oh, it's a fucking plant, it's whatever. No, that's straight up just rolled out the way it was.
That was the real
surprised.
deal.
I mean, you know an old school B-boy when you see an old school B-boy, right? You know,
because some people, it was so well done that people thought it was made up. Like, it was like an act, like it's part of the show. But no, I used to see that all the time. We do audience participation. And sometimes you have an old school cat from the Bronx that used to break, let's say early 80s, but had a few drinks. The family's there, and they probably know that he used to throw down, and they push him. Come on, Jose, do it. And then, you know, as an MC, you could tell right away, like, wait, he might have a few moves. You put him in the middle, and then that's when you work the show. Like Clown does, like every other street performer does. And we highlight, and you will end up pulling them to do windmills or a head spin or a 90. And you could tell wow, you used to break back in the days. So
Well, we've done that because me and Wayne don't look like we're old b-boys. We've done that with Clown Street Hitting, where he pulls us out and we'll go a couple rounds with people like we got 2 left feet, and then we'll throw like, you know, I'd throw my front suicide to the head
oh,
stall or shit, you know.
that's when everyone loses it, I imagine.
Yeah,
Because they're not
'Cause-
expecting, they just think you're a guest watching the show.
yeah,
They pull someone like yourself, you're standing there. There's no way in there,
Yeah.
mama. In fact, I was just showing my wife. I was explaining to him who I was gonna interview, and then I'm like, yo, check Buddah out. And when she's watching, in fact, this one day, this linoleum, and you're kind of like top rocking. It's the video that says 52 years old. This is a while back.
right.
And she's watching it and she's like, oh, okay, okay. And then out of nowhere, when you just pull that front suicide, I remember her face. She was like, oh. So she didn't expect it for that to happen, like out of nowhere.
Which
Boom.
is why my spine is compressed. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
because you know, it's like we would never stretch. Like if you're at a club and all of a sudden the right song comes on, and sometimes you don't even get the space. I was bad because I would throw backflips and kick drinks out of people's hands and shit, like just get down in a short space, basically saying, move the fuck back, you know? But if you're drunk, the reason you don't get hurt on the front suicide is you got to land all points of your body at the same time.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like a stunt move. Like
But
the
if you
stunt
get
guys.
a double bounce,
oh,
like
that's
if
the
you ever
worst.
had a double bounce on a
Oh,
trampoline
that's
or
happened to
something,
me. That's happened to me.
right? You lose your spine.
And the triple bounce are even the worst because
Yeah.
you hit, and you, oh man, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Like,
so
you
so
gotta
that
land
would happen to me sometimes if I was drunk, because you're not full, like the intent is there, but maybe you shouldn't actually be doing that one, you know.
And let me tell you, at 52 years old, you still did have no fear. Because I saw some of the footage that you're like doing back handspring, back tuck, front spring, back handspring. I'm like,
Yeah.
52
Yeah.
years old? Like, I'm
And
45 right now.
and I'm a pretty heavy guy. I'm 200 pounds, right? So
What's your height by any chance?
5'7". So
Okay,
I'm
5'7".
stocky, you know. But I've always had a gut, but that extra weight going up on my head compressed my C4, right? So even sometimes when I'm kayaking, like I'll be on a wave surfing, and you got to actually have a good grip on the paddle. All of a sudden I'll get the claw because of the compressed spine pinching the nerve, and there's no strength in my hand. So I've been on a wave surfing, hooked the paddle under my arm, release my fingers, all this trying to still surf as you're doing this, regrip the paddle, and then keep going. You know, so like when I finally did like all the tests and stuff, like my chiropractor guy was like pulling in all the other chiropractors and going like, check out this guy's story about why he's, you know, messed up his body, right?
They will not even believe like
like
how you still walking.
Yeah. Yeah. And
like
so
they look at it like, how?
So there's a good example though, because I'm like 64 this summer, right?
Amazing. Wow.
But I won't do that stuff. Well, maybe I would if I was drunk. I'm visualizing like if I go,
and I really think now you don't have to be drunk. You gotta be at the right place at the right time. If you got some old school heads and you're on a panel and they say throw down, I already know, Buddah, that young Buddha's gonna come in your spirit and it's gonna take over.
Yeah.
You might regret it afterwards, but
this is why I dance with a bowler hat though, because it's low torque on your body, right? You can do some hat tricks and still make people smile. It's less risky, you know.
Amazing. Now I want to go back to when you mentioned your boy from the Bronx shows up and starts telling you the story about Floor Master. Tell me that story so that way we could continue on the way to Floor Masters.
On when we got
yes
we got officially sanctioned.
Yes. So tell me that story. So tell me that story. The kid's telling you about.
Sheldon Thomas and Sheldon, we just found out that he's still around. I was worried. I think he's got schizophrenia and stuff and was living in the streets and stuff. So we've been trying to find him, you know, for years. Like sometimes this stuff happens, right? But but he's part of our fam, so we want to find him again and take care of him as much as we can. But anyway, Sheldon says, that name. We thought that was a dope name, so we're carrying this name forward. And imagine now Breakin in 85 is like at a feverish pitch here in our city, because Beat Street had been out and everything, and so there's hundreds of crews in our city. No, I'm not saying all good crews, but people don't understand sometimes about how every block had a crew, back in the day, right?
And that's in Canada, and people would not think. People probably thought it was only in the Bronx happening. This was happening everywhere.
I think Toronto, Montreal, all these cities, they would have had hundreds of crews because everybody wanted to be a part of it, but only certain ones rose to the top. So the New York City Breakers came to town, and they were going to also judge our biggest competition. I don't know, maybe it was $1,000 first prize or something.
What year? What year is that?
This was, I think it was probably 85. Maybe it was 86. So after the show, and I remember they came out rocking black tights, dancing to the Mexican. Right. And so you'd already seen them on videos, but this was better than any wrestling match or anything. This is the New York City Breakers. You know what I'm saying? So Beat Street Kid and Kid Quick from my crew were groupies. I didn't go with them because I was I don't want to be a groupie,
And you're a little older, so you don't have
older,
that feeling.
I'm trying to carry myself I'm a little bit cool. I'm not going to, but they're they followed them back to the hotel that they were staying with.
Now, you guys went as Canadian Floor Masters at that moment?
The crew, the crew, yeah, we were Canadian Floor Masters at that moment. And
so now, do you have another name before it, and you just took it off and said, "Let's go with that name"?
Oh, I had my own crew called Freestyle Express. Wayne was in a crew called Ottawa City Crew, and then we left our crews, kind of folded them, and created this new super crew, kind of who's the fastest mill, who's the best head spins, how are we going to go, how are we going to take out Dynamic Crew, which actually happened later in some famous spontaneous battle.
Okay. So tell me back to the contest. New York City Breakers shows up, and you guys entered as Canadian Floor Masters.
No, we didn't enter. We didn't enter the contest.
You didn't?
We didn't enter it. No, and I can't remember why we didn't enter it. But anyways, we were there. I think maybe we were mad at something, But anyways, after the show, Wayne and Rob follow them back to the hotel, start talking to them, and I think Wayne might have had a copy. We made a promo video because I was older. I had a job, so I bought one of the first camcorders. Not a VHS, but a Sony 8mm. Because when you edited back onto the 8mm, you could get a clean splice instead of the rainbow glitch because it had a flying erase head, right? So we made our own little promo video from all the shows we did. They passed the VHS tape to New York City Breakers. New York City Breakers took it down, gathered, watched at Chino's house, thought we were really dope. I don't know if we wrote him a letter or if Wayne went down and we just said, look, we told him, we said, we bit your name, the old name. Are you cool with us carrying it forward? And they officially gave us then their blessing that, hey, you guys are dope. You can be part of the Floor Master family and carry that name forward. And then it's kind of dope because later on, even in Freshest Kids, if you watch the outtakes, there's maybe a Speedy or something, and somebody is talking about Canadian b-boys, and they're talking about Migas. Now Migas is a legendary mid-schooler b-boy, right?
Which is after, that's the 90s.
Yeah, that's later, and that's him and K-Mal and stuff. You know what I mean?
The whole Boogie Brats and
dope, but Chino and Pexter nah, we never heard of Migas. We know the Canadian Floor Masters. We gave them their name. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of sometimes us old guys, we don't necessarily know all the latest and the greatest that are doing.
That's correct. Because even myself, I'm not from the 80s, but there's so many b-boys now that are like killing it, winning every battle. And sometimes I have friends that are not b-boys and they come up and they're like, "Oh, hey Flash, check this guy out. You heard of him? He's the best in Germany or something." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I've never heard of that guy in my life." "What? You never heard of him?" I'm like, there's so many now.
Yeah, it's too hard. It's too hard to keep up. But anyways, it is what it is. And then oh yeah, then the other interesting thing that happened was I used to have a hologram store, like a 3D gallery in Canada. So it was like this first in Canada. Then half my crew worked in my store, right? It was this cool store. So this guy walks into my store one day and we started talking. And his dad is a promoter who brings over some of the dope acts in Canada. Now you gotta understand, this is Cold War, Russia, nukes positioned against nukes. Everybody worried about if the world's gonna fry.
So this is 86, 87?
Yeah. And for the first time, for 20 years, the Russian ballet company, the Kirov, was never able to come to North America because they were also worried that the ballerinas would all jet. They would just take off and stuff. So for the very first gig was they were coming to Ottawa and going to dance at our National Arts Center. So this guy was like, "You guys are really amazing. Why don't you do a private show for the Russian ballet backstage at the National Arts Center in the kind of giant choreograph rooms where they practice?" And so we did that, and we filmed it all. My wife was filming it all. And so like when I did my 1990, like the artistic director was like throwing his arms up in the air in excitement because like they'd never seen spinning moves in like weird parts of our body like that. So then, we're nervous to talk to them. They're famous. And then that's where we got the group picture of all of us standing with the Russian ballet. And then they insisted that we watch the entire show as they're on the main stage and 2,000 people are in the audience watching them. We're in the curtain wings in our tights, and the Russian ballerinas are like flirting with us as they come zipping off in the curtain wings, right? But what's cool about that story is because he was this promoter, or he did other big acts. And then we started talking about, well, what if we went to Russia? And I came up with that idea because they'd done ABC, I think, had done a little news story on breaking in Soviet Georgia. And they really couldn't do much, but I was like, fucking kids are interested. Look at that. That somehow they've heard about it. I don't know how, but they've heard about it. And then I'm like, what they do have is they have youth centers and gymnastic clubs all over Russia. What if the New York City Breakers were the main act? We were like the opening band, and we toured Russia together. So I contacted Holman, and we started putting it together with this promoter who had the inside people in Russia. And that's why we have that news story, because then Tony came down, Mr. Wave came down, and he was trying to also release his rap single. And we did some shows together, Floor Masters with special guest Mr. Wave. And we talked about promoting our joint trip to Russia. So that's kind of where I became more friends with Holman, like, because again, we're a bit more on the marketing and the organization side and seeing a vision about doing some of this. And it was all coming together, and it would have changed history because, I mean, of course, Russia became later incredible with B-Boys, but that would have jump-started them way sooner.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden we went around.
But did it ever work out? You didn't tour?
It didn't, because one of the biggest earthquakes in the history of Russia happened, the Armenian earthquake, and they canceled all cultural exchange programs, and it never came back. But in the good side of the story is I became friends with Holman and stuff, and we started talking about doing these things together. So it didn't come to be, but it was coming together as a real thing, And
so now, what do you do after that happened and you're cool with Mr. Wave? And I'm gonna assume you already know New York City Breakers and you know all the characters there, right? Around that time, Because if you're talking about Armenian earthquake, that's a 88, 89, late 80s.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so moving on forward to, you already know that the Floor Masters no longer exist because now they're the New York City Breakers.
Right.
You already seen Beat Street. You already seen, I can already know you already seen a lot from them.
Right.
While you guys are watching that, what's happening in Canada? You guys are still performing as Floor Masters all the way?
Yeah.
Canadian Floor Masters?
So, and actually, there's a lot of old TV interviews about us. Like, we call it the dark days. You know what I mean? When the media went on to kind of like pimping BMX biking and skateboarding, and all of a sudden B-boying wasn't in the Mountain Dew commercial.
Yes.
and stuff. And a lot of crews just gave it up. But we were like, we're just getting started. Why would we give up on something we loved? So we danced all the way through it. So like when James Brown came, maybe that was 87, 88, we were the only crew to ask. You know what I mean? We didn't even have any competition. So like if they wanted somebody to open for James Brown, we danced with, the skateboarders had like half pipes, and then we're like all doing dance in front. So we kind of enjoyed that. And also we wear that as a bit of a badge of honor, that like, if you love something so much, why the fuck do you feel like you have to give it up? You know? And that's when, like, we didn't even know who Easy Rock was, you know? And then all of a sudden later we see some videos of Easy Rock. We're like, oh, this cat's dope, you know? Or the early Battle of the Year stuff, right? Like when you see like those giant crews on
Southside
stage.
Rockers. I remember Easy Rock was Southside Rockers.
Yeah, and you see, and you feel the energy of like, you know, those just raw big battles on stage. You know, it kind of got us hyped to keep going. You know, and then later we made multiple generations of the Canadian Floor Masters, and you know, we tend to do all the festivals and this and that, like, you know, and get paid. Try to get paid. You know.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about this right here. What's that?
Oh, so those are some of Live to Break in. So in 85, I moved to England for 6 months, and, you know, most of the breakers over there were black youth, not white youth. That's Scotty from Live to Break. He was a pretty incredible B-boy, but, you know, so I'm going to Brixton and I'm hanging out, and I'm hanging at the youth center in central London where all the breakers come and they practice. And like Mode 2, you know, Mode is like one of the most celebrated. He does all the Battle of the Year posters, right?
Can you name these characters here?
I think that's Raymond up at the top in the center. Down below him, not the white guy, but the other guy. I think that's Spider B. Airborne in over to the right. From Live, this is Live to Break crew.
Okay.
And to me, the two most famous crews in England at the time, early, you know, they got their history, right? Is probably Live to Break and London All Stars, and Dolby D is like with London All Stars. You know, he deserves his shine. But I was hanging around dancing with Live to Break. But the neat thing that I'm really proud of is by then I'm doing my master's thesis, and my prof is like a world authority on youth subcultures. He's written books mostly on punks, mods, rockers, skinheads, right? And then he meets me, and I'm a participant in a new emerging subculture. You know what I mean? But I always kind of look like a punk, because later I did like
which I saw. Let me see if I found, because I remember. I like that though, right there too. You're doing elbow spin or elbow freeze. I was known
for elbow spins, yeah.
Yeah, but I saw a few. What's this here right here?
Well, that's Wayne at Pexter's house. That's Pexter wearing our type.
That's so official,
right?
So wait, you send it to them, and then they're like, "Let me rock that."
Well, Wayne must have brought an extra set of tights down when he went to visit Pexter and stayed at his house. So
that's so dope. That's so dope. I'm supposed to interview Pex when we both have the time, because that's the way it works. Sometimes, you know, people got different lives and things they're doing, and I'm doing certain things. So we always try to map up, you know, like look what happened to us. Like we try to do this, and something happens, and
But
that's just the
eventually
way
it
it works.
happens, so it's all good.
Yes,
I'm
and I
sure
know
you
I.
got 10, 15 people in the hopper coming down the
Oh
line,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And what about this right here? Boom, because that was kind of like your style. You had like a really interesting style in that day, like the punk rock days. Is
Yeah.
that what your style as a
Yeah,
b-boy
you know what?
too?
I didn't fully go for all the hip hop. Like I thought Cazelles looked goofy. I was like, I ain't wearing those glasses. You know what I mean? Like I was old enough that it's like I'm gonna wear my own fashion, and I like punk fashion. And I also liked, because I was an old punk involved in a lot of protests, being arrested, and in the early days we'd have mosh pits, slam dancing, and ciphering the same night in the same club. Like often that would go on. So that was when I was traveling in North Africa in '85, and I happened to be in Marrakesh for
Oh, look at
Ramadan.
that.
So check it out. In
Wow.
in Ramadan, it's not like the Square of the Dead. It's all lit up with bonfires, and it's not like British tourists coming off a bus. They might come in the day, and I hung out with the snake charmers. So the snake charm, we'd smoke a spliff. I'd be sitting there high with like a cobra around my neck or something, and literally I could stand up and do a moonwalk, and like a giant crowd of North Africans would come to see me. And also I looked kind of freaky. They hadn't seen somebody maybe look like me. So
Would that be
often I
your
would,
look right here? That was your
yeah, that's
style?
kind of how I was growing out my hair. That's when I lived in England, and I was but I'd go to Brixton. I was fully accepted. It didn't matter that I looked like that. You know what I mean? I mean, it was a bit confusing to the skinheads. I used to get grief because they were like, well, why are you hanging out with those black guys? And I'm like, because they're my friends. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't understand. There's still a lot of racism and stuff that they thought because of the way I looked, I should have been hanging with the skinheads. And I'm like, no, I like this fashion, but this is hip hop and dance, and this is what I'm about.
Now, is this before Turkey or after Turkey?
Turkey came later, but Morocco was dope because I don't for sure they'd never seen a windmill before. You know what I mean? So it's not like we had a boombox. I would get people doing a soul clap. You know what I mean? And then put down some cardboard, and you can do some stuff, and they'll like it. But like a windmill had that same impression like the first time you saw a windmill. It kind of blows your
Yes.
mind. So man, that's why I love that picture with everybody looking through the hijab and just seeing their eyes kind of bug out as they're looking at you going like, and my girlfriend, who's my wife, of many years, is just kind of shaking her head, kind of like,
And what's her name? What's her name?
Susan.
Susan. Okay. Which is dope that you're saying that because I see here, for example, this right here. Boom. What's that?
Yeah, so that's my wife Susan back there in the blue. And this is in Turkey. So an example, they'd seen us dancing and invite, then they insist that you come to their house. You're not a tourist, you're family. So we're eating a Turkish meal on the floor. And then I taught their kids how to backspin. And then they were so grateful. Imagine this. In another room, they had an old tub in the middle of the room. They insisted that I have a hot bath. So there's this old wrinkled grandma filling up buckets of hot water at the fireplace. I got to get down into my shorts and sit in this hot tub, not a hot tub, well, a bath, to have a hot bath as a way of them showing their appreciation that you
That's so
shared some
awesome.
dance.
Now, I see this is also
That's
there.
teaching their kids to spin. Yeah,
Amazing. And this is 86, correct?
yeah, yeah.
And what about here, right here? What's that?
So that's Turkey. I can't remember what village that is, but we would backpack into like little tiny towns. I love that picture because you can just see how excited they are. Like they may
Oh
not fully
yeah.
understand who you are, what you did, but they're just like, "Oh my God, you blessed us in some weird way." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which is
you brought joy because when you
yeah,
perform, you bring joy, and that's very hard in those countries to bring joy like that. So it's
yeah.
amazing.
Those are great memory. Yeah, you see, I just found some old boxes, put it down, and they're all kind of looking like, "What's this guy gonna do?" I got my Converse on.
You're doing your thing. You're performing now. Were you there alone doing your thing?
Yeah, just me and my wife backpacking around, and she's a trained ballet dancer and stuff. You know what I mean? So she just always shakes her head like, "Oh fuck, he's doing it again. He's doing it
Look
again."
at that right there.
Yeah, that's in Athens.
Man, you were everywhere. So you were just traveling and
Yeah,
just
I joke about it, but like when the Beat Street tours and stuff like that were happening, they were all going through like the main cities, Paris, Berlin. I was in the out of way places meeting local kids, and like when I would meet the Muslim kids, they were so interested, but like they would say they would get a beating if they ever tried to do it. So they would close up the carpet shop. I would go after work, after hours, we'd put down a big carpet and I would try to teach them some stuff, because they were
so
so
they will get a
interested.
beating if they do, like if they will
Yeah, like culturally, it wouldn't have been accepted back then by the Muslim culture, So that's why they were like, don't show us something while the shop's open and things like this. I don't
and
want my parents to know that
oh
you're coming
wow.
back to teach me a backspin.
And I see here you're in Spain, correct?
Yeah, that was Toledo. So I saw them, they were practicing. And so then I hung out and nobody could do a windmill. So when I did a windmill, then they were just like, ah. So they wanted to bring me as their secret weapon to go battle the Madrid City Breakers. I couldn't go, of
Oh.
course. I would we're touring around going to lots of little places. But I just thought that was funny. It's like how many, there was Paris City Breakers, there was the Madrid City Breakers. You know what I mean? Like there were a lot of these crews. But yeah, they were, they hadn't been able to figure out the windmill yet. So then somebody arrives who's doing mills and they're like, wow.
They probably seen it on TV or music video or something, and they see it live, and
Yeah.
they're probably blown away. What about this right here?
So those are those snake charmers that I was hanging with, right? I mean, that's a cobra around my neck.
Yeah, I
And
was watching that. That's such an interesting picture.
yeah,
And
and
what's that on top of the cage? Is that like a
that's an owl, like a little owl. They had
wow?
lots of lizards and owls and different kinds of snakes and stuff. And again, I was kind of their friend. I would just kind of hang out, smoke a doob, do some dancing. They called me Papa Smurf in Morocco. I think they called it smurfing in the early days in
What?
France.
Papa Smurf.
Yeah, so I walked through the Casbah and they would laugh at my hair and they whistle and clap their hands and all the shopkeepers would come out like dominoes and
To see.
to see what I look like. And also because word travels, is like there's this weird street dancer that's
Now,
come to our town.
not only you're Canadian, for them, white probably was so different to them. Not only that, you have funny hair to
Yeah,
them. Not only that, you also break
that's
like
right.
they're like, what in
It
the
was
world
it
is
was this
this?
weird cultural mix. That now I got to tell you because I'm always excited to tell this one. Let me tell the story about the young boys' circumcision party that I danced at. So
What?
imagine this. We're in rural
Can you
Turkey.
send me a picture to that?
I don't have a picture of that,
Okay, because I
but
saw something with
or there
somebody on a
might be
bed.
one picture of a kid in a bed,
Yes,
which is
that's
that
this
kid.
kid.
So imagine this. I guess
Go
you
ahead.
don't get circumcised till you're later, right? So let's say he's 12. I don't know how old he is. So we had just been, this is how weird my life felt like at the time. In Turkey, a traditional thing is called camel wrestling. Not many people get to see it. It's not people wrestling camels, it's camels wrestling camels. And the camels with their necks intertwine and try to use their strong necks to flip the next camel. So
What?
people told us we're in a little village and they're like, camel wrestling is going to happen. You should go. So we go out 10 miles outside of town and there's thousands of people and there's army with machine guns to keep the people back to watch the camel wrestling. So we have this really weird day and they let me go into the middle because I had a long lens camera. Me and National Geographic were the only Westerners there, right? Another guy from National Geographic taking pictures. So we have this amazing day and we're like, oh, we're so blessed. We got to see traditional camel wrestling. It's been around for 1,000 years, So we're back we're going to sleep in a little room above the bus station. This is a little village of 500 people or something. So we're walking around at night, and I hear Turkish music. I'm thinking, oh, that's like belly dancing music. So I open the door and I peek in, and I see a big party going on. Right now, the drink that they like is it's like a licorice anisette type drink. Like it's called raki. Right?
Okay.
It's a strong drink, but it's like a licorice drink. So I get people are loaded, and there's a little boy dressed as a prince sitting up at the front of the dance floor who looks like he's in pain. He's been circumcised. And they got like all the old grandmas and
And you don't know
relatives.
this. And you don't
No,
know
I
this.
don't. The people had to explain it to him. But when they saw us peeking in the door, they're like, "Oh, look, a couple of white people. Bring them in. They're here to bless whatever's going on." So they bring us in. They give us a table. They're trying to embarrass me in front of my girlfriend by sending the belly dancer over. People are putting money in her G's for the boy and stuff, and she's wiggling in front of me, belly dancing and everything. So we're like, yeah. Then we had to pose sitting with all the elders who were like wearing black, like the old Turkish grandmas and stuff, for like the picture, and pose for picture like on the bed with the young boy who's dressed as a prince. So it's already kind of weird, but then people are drunk and dancing. And at one point they put on a certain song and only the men are dancing. And they're almost doing like Cossack type kicks and stuff, like Russian kicks and stuff down on the ground and doing things. And I'm like 101, baby. This is male bonding. This is my time. I'm out there with the boys, right? So I go out and I just do some tops and I drop to a mill. I didn't always hit this, but I hit it this time. I dropped to a mill, fast backspin up onto my head and just stopped upside down and just looked at them. And there was like this moment of silence for a second or two because they couldn't believe what they just saw. And then just like this screaming riot broke out. So now people are rushing up to the dance floor. They're getting a comb and someone's combing my hair. Another man's giving me a piece of lamb, trying to feed me lamb from his hand. Other men are trying to kiss me on the cheeks, because they're just so blown away. And for them, I'm sure this story exists somewhere, so-and-so is now 50 years old and this happened at his circumcision party, and eventually they almost got into fights as they would follow us as we tried to go back to our hotel, because they're like, I have the only phone in town. You can phone home to your parents in Canada. You can, so literally a mob just wanted to be around us but to me,
that is such an amazing story. Now, is that kind of like
that's the kid. That's the kid, man.
That's the scene right there.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I just
and you
found
guys
that
were
photo
to the side. You guys were to the side. You guys were
Yeah.
to the side, like doing all that, the performance and everything that was happening. Wow, this kid is in bed like that.
Yeah. With the dance floor right at his feet, like literally to the one side was the big dance floor where everybody was up drunk dancing.
So now, is this tradition for the kid, everything that's happening?
I don't know. Like, I think I don't know why they circumcise kids later in life. I guess that's the tradition, like probably more into manhood, or something. But I didn't, we didn't plan any of that to roll out the way it is. But when there's a party, when there's a dance, you dance, right? And you bring you bring you to the table.
And it doesn't matter where. Dance is universal. So if you're celebrating something, you're dancing to it, or you're mourning something, because I know there's certain religions that they dance when they're mourning as well. So I guess to them, once you performed and they saw all that, they were like, you were the biggest blessing. And I bet they still talk to this day about that. If those people are still alive, I know for a fact. Did you see the little kid's face after you did all that?
No, because I was kind of overwhelmed by everybody like swarming me, with excitement, And the other thing is, I love that they would laugh right in my face. Like when I walked, because I did look like a freak to them, so they don't hide it back and try to be polite. they would laugh right in my face about the way I looked, and I would just handle that. But they held no animosity towards me. They just thought it was great. Look, he's got a fucking mohawk that he's growing out or something, you know?
And then you performed, you were an alien to them.
That's right. That's right.
Completely. You're like, he came from space or something, because like, who's gonna ever think, like, already, like I said earlier, you have a mohawk. That's already standing out.
Right.
But now you're spinning on your head and you're freezing.
Right.
And you do it probably so graceful in front of them that they're like, for them it was probably hard just doing kickouts, because I know that not everybody's in shape there doing those kickouts, and then you spin and you go crazy. That's such an amazing story. Now, around that time when all this is happening, you're traveling, who were your mentors or teachers around that time that were guiding you? Names that you would drop that you would say, I will have to give credit to that person for teaching me this, guiding me that, or even people that were across the world from you. Who were those that you could think of?
I would say it was all my crew. You know, like those were the people you spent all the time with, practicing to be the best. So we would challenge each other. You know, we would make little games like add-on. You know what I mean? So Cypher. So boom, I go in and I do 6-step. Boom. Now you go, you got to add something. And so like the combos would keep adding. But those are like training games. You know what I mean? Well, we would do those. In terms of people that I knew of, it was the New York City Breakers. Like, we idolized them. Even when we first saw Little Alex, we're like, because he was new, we'd never seen him before. You know what I mean? We saw.
Now, did you ever see the Rocksteady crew?
Well, we'd seen the Rocksteady crew, but because the New York City Breakers came to our town, we're like, no, we're New York City Breaker fans. Maybe it would have been different if Rocksteady would have come. You know what I mean? Like, I have all that old footage of Rocksteady in their blue and yellow jumpsuits in Denver and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they were dope. They did a lot of cool stuff.
But now was it because I'm gonna tell you, like, when in '93 when I got involved, I looked at Rocksteady crew, but I don't know, man. I saw New York City Breakers, Incredible Breakers, Dynamic Rock. They were spinning, they were flipping, they were flying. I was like, and I'm a martial artist. I was like, I like that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
So do you think it had to do a little bit of the fact that you already kind of, you know, you had the rage in you, and it's so much you can do with footwork. It's unlimited. I know that, but the feeling of just throwing power and like,
that power aspect, you felt like a superhero in your type. And honestly, like, we danced once in front of 100,000 people on main stage show in Canada Day. You know, you got to have some kahunas to stand there proud like this with your arms up in your one-piece tight, and it's like, just fucking wait.
Which I used to find it so funny when I used to see all that footage. I'm like, what is going on over here? Like, why are they dressed like that? But I understand that wasn't you guys portraying superheroes? Was that it? Like the whole suit thing? I never understood
I think it was just the New York City Breaker thing. But then again, you know, you felt like you had full flexibility and stuff to do all the kind of nimble, agile moves. You know, when we wore the black tights, we actually sometimes wore black ninja mask too. So you would just have your eyes kind of right. So you had, again, that martial arts kind of thing. Like Sheldon, the guy from the Bronx who was part of our original crew, he was into nunchuckas and stuff like that too. Yeah, I mean, most early B-boys. Look, I grew up watching the Green Hornet with Kato. You know what I mean?
Of course, that's classic.
That and comic books, you know. But in terms of, for me, my favorite, and I think it's because I did different front suicides like him and stuff. With Flip Rock was my boy in terms of, I watched him and how eloquent he was with his movement and stuff.
Which I saw a picture you sent me. I don't know what this is, but somebody flying in the air.
Well, that's Flip Rock.
Oh, that's freaking Flip Rock.
So we're at his apartment, and that night is the night we went out to the world with Flip Rock and Michael Holman. Grandmaster
what year is
Flash
that?
was spinning, at
What
the
year?
World. We went to the club The World. So this is in the lobby of his apartment building.
Man, he almost looks like he's stuck in the ceiling with his foot.
Yeah, Bobby Potts.
That's amazing. Now, what year was this?
I'm gonna say 88.
So you guys are already family with Floor Masters.
And that night was fun because I got to tell this. So even though I was the oldest one in the crew, I was supposed to be like the responsible leader. I was kind of rough around the edges myself. Like if a fight was going to happen, sometimes I was the one who might start the fight, and the young crew would have to like take care of me. Especially if I'm not proud of this, but you know what I mean. Like if I was in a club and I saw some white rednecks standing back, kind of looking cocky as we had fun and we were dancing, I would stop dancing and go right up to them and go in their face and like, what the fuck you looking at? You know what I mean? Like, especially if I was drinking, because I was always like, you're just pissed because you can't fucking dance, you know? And
so you still had that rage in you.
I still had that rage. Like many times my crew would have to like stuff me in a cab because I'm going face to face. We haven't actually fought yet, but I'm calling out a guy twice my size, and the guy's hesitating because I seem psycho. You know what I mean? As my younger crew is like, yo, get Buddah in the cab, get him out of here, right? So we roll up to the World, and the bouncer, I got a Mickey of whiskey in my coat, and he frisked me and he finds my whiskey. Maybe it was Southern Comfort, and he's like, I remember exactly how he said it. Man, you trying to buck the system, boy. You trying to buck the system. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. I'm Canadian. This is how we do it. We sneak our booze into the club. So homeboy, he just takes my bottle, he puts it back in my inside pocket, and he goes, come on, into the club, right? So we roll into the club, and I'm all right, and we're just dancing, club dancing. But we got Flip Rock with us and Holman with us. And some crew, I wish I could find out who it was we battled, but it felt like the movie Beat Street, because next thing you know, we're in a full-on battle with Flip Rock on our side against some crew. I heard they were from Brooklyn. But the problem was after it was done, and I think we took them, but who knows, right? It was a legit good battle. Now you're so cocky, you know what I mean? You don't go over and talk to the guys and go, what's your crew name? You know what I mean? Like you're kind of like, no, man, we just fucking battled, right? Okay, back to the club, back to meeting the ladies, you know? But that was a good night. I mean, we were there. Like I said, Grandmaster Flash was spinning, you know?
And you already heard about Grandmaster Flash and all that, right?
Yeah, of course. And so then all of a sudden to be in a club that feels like the Roxy, you know, although it was multiple tiered and different clubs within clubs kind of thing. You know, the funny thing about the Roxy, when I heard about the Roxy when I was like 15, 16, because remember I was telling you about how important roller skating was to me. Well, back then I'd heard about, there's this amazing roller rink in New York called the Roxy. And so my goal as a 15-year-old kid was someday to skate at the Roxy.
Oh.
Right? And then
did it ever happen?
Never happened. But then when you see it in Beat Street and stuff, you know, you're just kind of like, damn.
Oh, you had the little taste of that battle against those Brooklyn cats.
Yeah.
That gave you that feeling like, man, this was kind of like Beat Street,
like
the movie when they're battling.
You get to relive like kind of what that energy felt like when you watched the battle in Beat Street, you know? I mean, maybe somebody will watch this and come out and go, yo, I was with that crew, or I was there that night or something, you know? But
yes. Now, do you think Flip Rock will remember what crew? Because if he probably knew them, right?
Yeah, maybe he did. I don't think he said he knew them though back then. And you know, the best dancer in our crew, Trevor, at the time was he'd gone shopping for shoes, so he had like high platform shoes. So like he's dancing in these, right? He's our combo guy, right? Supposed to be doing like the flare mills and all this stuff.
He just added a pound on his foot.
He was handicapped with these stupid shoes he bought, you know.
And he did good?
Yeah, he still did good. I mean, we had Coach, Dexter, Trevor was Tricky T, me, and Flip Rock. So 5 of us, you know.
So now, when you guys were in New York City hanging out, were you guys dressed the same, or everyone had their own style? Were you trying to fit in with the New York City people,
I
or you wanted to represent Canada and be like, "Hey, we're Canadians. This is who we are. We're in New York City, and we got our proud flag here." Did it
right.
feel like that?
You know what? I never worried about that because I think I was older and I was already like, I'm doing me. You know what I mean? No matter where I go. Um, Whereas the younger guys in my crew and like Wayne and stuff, they were all up in oh, I'm going to get my rope chain, I'm going to get my triple fat ring, I'm going to
That's what I
roll.
was asking, because
Yeah, which is
I know
why now
even.
that when we're doing this museum exhibit, like Wayne is the Canadian Museum of stuff like this. I mean, I got some stuff. I've got an old triple fat goose parka and the old goggles, and I got like the New York City skyline Run DMC Adidas crested shirt, and like some stuff that
Oh,
you're glad
wow!
you held
You
on
got some
to.
ghetto blasters?
Yeah, I think Wayne's got a big old Clairtone still. I used to have the JVC one, which was pretty good because we used to street hit, right? Like street hitting was, back then people, for someone to put a $20 bill into the hat or the bucket was a lot of money. But because people hadn't really seen much breaking, we would get like, I remember once in an hour we made $1,000 street hitting.
In Canada.
Yeah, right,
And
in our
you're
tourist
like,
area or market area.
and you
Which is
guys
where I
were
saw
happy.
Clown and Universal street hitting, right? So I'm walking around, I have my video camera with it, and I'm like, who the fuck are these boys in my city? You come to my city
What
and
year?
street
What
hit.
year?
That probably was 88, 89. And then, after I talked to them, I'm like, yo, we're the formats, da da da. And then we all went out partying together. Like Universal was pretty ill too. He was a real tick master and pauper, and so we did a bunch of stuff together. And I'll tell you a funny story, man. So years later, somebody owed me some money, and I said, instead of paying me back the money, I want you to pay for a free bus. Now I'm going to bring 100 Canadian B-boys and B-girls to Rocksteady anniversary. This is about 20 years ago. So we pick up kids. Megas is on the bus and everything, and we're all going to Rocksteady anniversary. We're going to stay on Amsterdam Avenue in a Fleabag hotel, $5 a night kind of thing. Get your scratch on, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And we go to New York, and I go up, I see these hitters, and I see this older black man kind of overseeing the younger kids hitting. And I go up to him, I look at him, and I go, Universal? It was Universal. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. It was
you
his.
recognized him?
Yes. And he recognized me from like way back, right, when they were float committee. And it was his children, or at least some of his children, street hitting now. Like there's I'm not an expert on the street hitting story.
Yeah,
York.
that's a show itself, because let me tell you, if I get Wayne Blizz or Zone or any of those cats from back then, they're gonna break down the whole entire street act,
Yeah.
from the Breeze team to the float committee, the USA. Like,
I think
there's
it's
a lot of
really
hitters.
important. I think it's really, really important. And I not that we were experts at it, like we kind of figured out our way, and that's where you learn your commanding of the circle and the comedy and stuff. Like I could kill people just with comedy with my hat, and not even have to hit the floor. It's like when I first saw Salah out at Freestyle Session in Seattle, I was like, he does this thing and he can like laser eye with one person out of 500 in the crowd and create this connection and control the crowd and stuff, and it's like, this is some next level shit that these hitters are.
Now,
are
what
on.
happened when you saw Clown? Like, you said, man, these guys are in my city. Do you approach them? Like
Yeah, I approached them right afterwards. And my first attitude was like, who the fuck are you in my city? And then I was like, no, man, I'm excited to meet new people. And
So when you saw the show,
I saw the whole show and I filmed their entire show. And then I just went up and I said, yo, I'm Buddah, I'm a b-boy, you know, da-da-da. And then we arranged to go out to a club together. So last night there was Ben, Universal, and Clown, and then all of Canadian Floor Masters going club to club, creating wreck on the dance floors as we went drinking and partying together.
And then years later, you guys become buddy. Boom.
Yeah.
Look
I mean, he's just a wise man with one of the biggest hearts in our culture, and I just have a lot of love and respect for him, you know. And like when he came for the Michael show, like me and my kids and my wife and Wayne and his kids and wife were all at the show for free. We're all backstage. My daughters get to meet Lace twins. You know, I mean, I mean, for them that's cool. For me, I don't really care. I'm like, no, I'm hanging with Clown and Salah. You know what I mean? But you know, and then he stayed and came to my family for Thanksgiving dinner, and we had a turkey dinner and the whole bit.
Yeah, so awesome. And what's this about right here?
Oh, you know what? That was Steve Graham's Silverback thing in Philly. You know, so that's Wayne Blitz, Clown, Ralph, myself. I can't remember who the other guy is in the hat. I think he's maybe kind of a European OG or something. You know, but
he looks familiar.
Yeah, you go to an event and you meet people and stuff. You know, like some people, like Ivan was there. I hadn't seen Ivan for 20 years. Like when I first met Ivan, he was running an event in Seattle, and I happened to be there hanging with Cirque Du Soliel.
Are you saying the urban action figure?
What?
The urban action figure, Ivan?
Yeah. B-boy Ivan.
I actually toured with him. We were on an off-Broadway show for probably 10 years. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but we actually toured Canada too. It's called Break, the Urban Funk Spectacular.
Wow.
And this is after Jam on the Groove. This is kind of like a copy. I wouldn't say a copy, but it got inspired by Jam on the Groove, and Ivan was in it. A lot of b-boys were in it. Skill Methods, like, and that was a pretty big tour for about 15 years. In fact, we were the first ones to teach in Korea Expression's crew, Rivers crew. We went to Korea in 1999, 2000, and they were just strictly power moves. And we were doing workshops. Flea Rock, myself, Migas was on it too.
Oh wow!
Migas had a neck injury, so he had that stiff neck. You know, I call it the Batman neck. He had the Batman neck, so he couldn't perform out there. But it's interesting to know that so many shows go in and out in life. Like, for example, you mentioned the Michael Jackson. Is that the Immortal tour, right? The Immortal.
Yeah.
Where they're out there.
I mean, this is before he got injured, you know, and stuff. And yeah, you know what? There's just this respect when and the excitement when you get to meet like another OG. Like I was so excited when I got to sit and chill with Float all night.
Yeah, and then rest in peace, man. Float was
Float. Man had a lot of beautiful things to say. You know, and I feel blessed that I got to have those conversations, even if it was just that one night, you know. One of my favorite nights, like after that, the night at that event, there's Storm, Quick Step, Float, me, Clown. We're all on the couch in the lobby of the hotel, and we're drinking, just passing a bottle, but we're just bullshitting, telling stories. I remember the old roller rink, remember da. And there's like 30, I love the mid-schoolers, I call them, you know what I mean? Because they're just sitting down on the floor in front of us, listening to every word, just taking it in. You know what I mean? They don't want it. They're not even piping up and saying shit.
They're just listening.
seeing that, listening, just hearing the interactions of the stories back and forth and stuff, and that's one of my favorite moments. I'm kind of like, that's why I don't like panels so much, because panels sometimes feel a little bit too artificial.
As a matter of fact, you mentioning panels, you know how I see panels? I see panels like the news. In the news, if you go on the news, you get about 30 seconds, a minute to talk, say a
Yeah,
few words, and that's it. And then you got
yeah,
to move on. How long does it take? Like, look at the show. It takes a while for you to warm up and start talking. You start thinking of things. You put on the spot in a news show or something, and let's say CNN or one of them you're watching, or one of the Canadian channels. It's quick. You can't be like, let me tell you a story in
yeah,
1988. Like, it's so short. So I think panel discussions are the same way. Now, when it comes to like that situation, you guys are drinking, relaxed. There's no mics. Okay, it's your turn. Your turn. You guys are just talking. I
yeah,
bet those kids that were there, if they were listening, they
yeah,
learned so much,
yeah,
even more than any panel discussion. I bet that because I was those kids. I
yeah.
remember being those kids back then. Pro Am, B-Boy Summit, freestyle session, anything. It could be the old school heads. I'm the 14, 15-year-old kid. I'm hanging out with them because I'm Incredible Bakers. I'm family. I'm listening to all those old school guys talk about everything, and I'm like, wow, like.
And
And then when I was,
the old school guys are truly happy to be with each other. I think that's some of it, is they can actually see the excitement, because I'd never met Float before, but we were excited because we still shared some similarities of ideas and concepts and stuff, because we're from a certain generation,
and even if y'all had beef with each other,
Yeah,
still that love was show, because you'd be like, man, you didn't beat me. Oh man, like just those little
yeah.
things. It shows even to the young generation, like competition is great, but at the end, it's all love, and that's the beauty of hip hop. Because I could imagine around that time, let's say, what would you consider the peak of your career? What year that you could say, this is where I was at the best, I was doing the illest? What year would you say?
Oh, damn. Because in some ways I started later, and I was still learning new moves when I was 40. Like, I later developed one. I'd roll back like this, pop up, do a full twist in the air, and then land in a suicide and stuff. I didn't have that move when I was young, but because I'm hanging around with the new generation that we did, I was still kind of motivated to try and invent some new things. I don't know. I think I got better up until I was probably 45 even.
Wow. So now it's interesting, because asking you is one thing and asking your boys is another thing. Because I ask your boys and I'll be like, hey, when do you think Buddah was the illest? They're gonna say a certain day, a certain year,
Yeah.
because they're watching you. We're our own worst critic. So even if you were at your top level in 1988, you might feel that you wasn't, because
Yeah, we're
that's
tough on ourselves. It's
yeah.
like every
So
time you do a show, and and backstage I got footage of our crew going, fuck that up or whatever. And I'm like, the audience still loved us. That's like, we still killed it. You were just being really hard on ourselves that
So,
wasn't
according to
tight.
the audience,
Yeah.
guests, travels, and everything, where would you say you were performing the most? Where you were just getting booked everywhere, flying, battling here, club? Like what year?
It was probably from 85 to 90 we did the most shows. That would be club shows, festival shows, and I also had this thing, and we're talking a lot about this because the hip hop museum exhibit that's going to happen in my city is like, I had this vision that it ain't just about us as b-boys. I bought into the idea that I'm good at getting gigs and getting paid and negotiating. I'm going to use that to bring my MC friends, my beatbox friends, my DJ friends. We all eat together. So I'll give you an example. We were the head of programming at our National Arts Center had seen us dance in a club and was like, holy fuck, I'd like you guys to come. And so we got invited to open for La 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 Human Steps. Now, at that time, they were probably the world's most famous modern dance company. Edward Locke did all of David Bowie's choreographies for his tours and this and that. So that was a big honor. But I turned it down. I was like, I'm not going to do it unless I get to bring our MCs, our DJ, and the beatboxers. And you got to pay me more money than what you were originally asked. And they went for it. Twice we opened for La 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 Human Steps. And so historically, when we talk about it, like I don't know that if that kind of love and commitment to each other exists as much as we felt it did back then, which I can't tell people what to do with hip hop now and moving forward. They're going to do what they're going to do, but know what you're missing out on, and know what some of the beauty and the gold was that we had, which was this sense of family, sense of commitment, sense of that we're part of creating something that's different. Again, being politically involved and protesting Reagan in involvement in El Salvador and the Oliver North stuff and the Sandinistas, and I'm being arrested at cruise missile rallies and put in jail for 2 days, and stuff. Like, I was, maybe it was some of the rage too, coming out like, this is political. You may not realize it, but hip hop is fucking political.
It's super political, which brings me to the question: in the current state of hip hop culture right now, what is something you would like to change?
The first thing that jumps to my mind is it ain't about you. It ain't about just you. And everything seems to be working against us, whether it's in social media. And it's kind of like, I was just talking to an old carpenter the other day, about old school, like the old school mentality that I grew up on is you get your skills and you apprentice under a welder, under a carpenter, under an electrician. You don't jump on YouTube and try to market yourself to being the king electrician. It's like, it's a fool's game. And there's all kinds of other implications that have come. It just frightens me. I feel so sad for young people that are so wrought with anxiety that if somebody didn't put a little heart on their fucking post, they can't make it through the day. Be you. And there should be room in our culture to be you and to be different and be powerful, and then use that energy of your power to pull other people along and build other people up, which is why it still triggers me because of the bullying thing. But I see a lot of fucking bullying in hip hop. I see a lot, and especially when old cats do it, I'm kind of like you might only have 20 years left to live. Like, go out a happy man, fix your relationships. There's no need. It doesn't elevate you in the eyes of anybody by bringing others down. It's like, I wasn't the illest b-boy. I've never positioned myself like that. I think I was a good b-boy at the time. The other things I did, though, were try to move other people. Like, I'm super proud of Freestyle 85 in England, because we took it out of the control of the record companies, and we powered Mode 2 and Pride and the Chrome Angels and Live to Break. And for me now to reconnect with those UK cats and know that they went on to have lifetime careers and pay the bills in hip hop, and they did them, I'm like, we did something right, showing them that they can do that. So I kind of wish, but that's like when hip hop cares for each other. I go off in my mind. I'm fucking like going crazy about the slogans, as I'm like, everybody will eat. I got an each one tattoo, a big one with like a Keith Haring thing and stuff. But I believe in it. I believe in it as a responsibility in your own family. If you're 12 years old, you got a responsibility to your 6-year-old brother about like pulling people along. Peace, unity, love, and having fun. Like these things roll off people's lips like it's a fucking elevator pitch. And I'm like, I'm so sick of it because people actually say that, want to be positioned a certain way, but it's all about self-marketing. And then on the back half, there's slandering people and stuff, you know, and it's the mental health guy in me is like, it's anger, it's misplaced, it's, you know, there's a whole bunch of dynamics that are going on. But like, if we truly believe that hip hop is healing, and I do believe that from the get-go, knowledge of self should have been talked about more as how crucial a thing that is. Because if you have true knowledge of self, and knowledge of yourself is a bitch, let's be honest. Nobody likes to really fucking take a clear look at themselves. You know what I mean? But honestly, that's the path towards less fear, more courage, more love, more empathy, more community, more focusing on a lot of all the good things. Otherwise, we really risk things like the Olympics or whatever, maybe taking us down side roads that actually work against those kind of cherished goals. So I've been roundabout saying a lot of things here, but I wish we were returned to being more political and more supportive of each other and all the elements.
Now, do you feel that has to do like, you know, like there's a lot of times that you have a family. When I say a unit of a family, the mom, the dad, and the kids, usually the kids turn out to be pretty crazy when the dad is not around.
Yeah.
Do you feel that in the hip hop culture, those dads are not around to mentor these kids and start? Do you feel that there's a lack of that fatherhood in the hip hop community itself that are guiding those kids instead of bullying them or dissing them or saying, you don't do it like me, this is the way you do it, you suck, you're whack, you know, whether it's with words? Do you feel that it's missing? Like, do you feel like these leaders are in the culture that are mentoring, inspiring, guiding them, saying, yo, come this way? I know you don't have a dad at home, but come this way. I'll teach you something. Do you feel that that's what's going on?
We have a lot of potential to do a way better job at that. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you get intergenerational stuff where like, yo, my dad wasn't around. And then now, so where did I see fatherhood? So now I've got kids. Well, where did I learn it from? Unless I picked up some of that from uncles or from like an extended family or some other thing, you know. So we're really at risk at not even knowing how to be loving parents, but not overbearing parents. You know what I mean? Like that balance where like kids can grow, they can get some resiliency, they can come into their own without spoiling them, without making them anxiety ridden, without, you know what I mean? Like it's not easy. It's a hard balance. I'm not a perfect parent. I have a lot of things that I've not proud of, but I got to tell you, maybe this is a segue where I want to talk about my son. You know, one of the biggest things that changed my life that I'm forever grateful for, my son's 33 now. Aaron was born with Down syndrome and autism and heart defects and a club foot. I had these aspirations in my mind of being this successful entrepreneur. Even in amongst my family, it was like Steve's the wheeler and dealer, da 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 da. You know, at some point I had to really throw that out the window and go, there's nothing wrong with me trying to be the best father I can be in the world. Maybe that's my new goal. And it may be a more humble goal, but what the fuck is wrong with that? And in fact, I've learned so much about living in the moment, being deeply present and being grateful for little things in life from my son. If I could wave a wand and say, take away the Down syndrome stuff, I wouldn't do it, because I've learned to re-gauge priorities of what's important in the world, and if you're only always firing on rage and anger, you're going to go out like that, and you will pass some of that rage and anger on to your children, whether or not you mean to. And I'm not trying to be judgy. I'm trying to be helpful, because I can judge myself a lot on, I used to yell, and there's some parenting things that I wasn't great at. But the hard part about reflecting about how you can change that, my goal is to be a little bit less angry every year. That's a reasonable goal. If you interview
Definitely,
me
that's
when
great.
I'm 75, I want to be, Buddha's so chill these days. You know what I mean? He's a happy man to be around. I used to be like, somebody cut me off on the highway, I visualize pulling them out of their car and giving them a beep. Literally, that's flashing through my head. Bad look for a dad, bad look for a social worker.
Is this your son right here? Boom, in the middle.
Yeah, that's Aaron in the middle. Yeah. And so here's the other thing. Even all the outreach work I do, I started bringing him when I started doing my city work here in my own city in alternative schools. And I can't tell you how much just his physical presence in the room with all these anxiety-ridden kids at the alternative school who have tried 20 schools and never feel like they fit, just brought the level of empathy down to like a beautiful baseline for everybody. You know what I mean? And he loves to dance. He sees himself as hip hop. And so, he gets to meet everybody like through me, like my friend Lazy Legs, who tours the world, with like Cujo's part of Ill Abilities and stuff, like, a bunch of dancers with physical disabilities and stuff. Like, Lazy's constantly checking in, like, how's my son Aaron and stuff, So, like, we got to broaden this concept about who hip hop's for. We may have first have kind of rolled out and kind of like, it's just for the Cypher King. It's for the, like, I get it historically, but what's the evolution of this?
Now, is this part of one of those that you're talking about?
Yeah. So that's a northern project we did. And actually, you know who that is right beside him?
Is that B-Boy Whack?
That's Whack. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, B-Boy Whack. Yeah, I can tell.
So like Whack and Nemesis and even Frankie from Supreme Beams have come with me on projects, And so that's
what year was this?
That's some kid in a wheelchair, and we're doing like a final night battle, right?
Yeah, what year is this?
I don't know. That's probably 15 years ago.
Time flies, man, when you're having fun.
Yeah, but like that little kid in the wheelchair has probably never felt like a superstar like he did that moment in the battle.
Absolutely.
There was another kid had it in a wheelchair, and his brother was able-bodied, a twin, but he was all crippled with cerebral palsy. So I designed a routine where he rode on the back of his wheelchair and juggled hats between the two heads and stuff. And like at one point, Nathan took Timothy and set him down in the middle of the dance floor, and Timothy could just wiggle to the music. 1,000 people in this little northern village watching, not a dry eye in the house. Everybody felt the love and appreciation for Timothy being involved. More happened dynamically in that room, healing, I think, for everybody. So let's create those moments. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's why we got to cheer on the fat kid when he has the courage to go in the cipher the first time. Because no matter how good you are now, you had to go in the cipher the first time. Somebody had to encourage your ass.
And that's Aaron right here too as well, right?
Yeah. So that changed my life and cooled my jets, and I continue to learn from them. And even these days, I'm thinking a lot about mindfulness and well-being and how we try to reintroduce those as important concepts in our day-to-day life and even in our are organizations, and like capitalism fucking doesn't really give a shit about your well-being. Like let's be honest about that.
Unless you're riding the wave with capitalism and using the tools that we've learned and ride capitalism and use it somehow to
Use it as a
pull,
tool.
yes, as a tool.
Yeah, as an
Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't totally write off capitalism, but I'm like, we'd be a fool not to watch it because history is, well, it's just, it happened in hip hop, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like
it's
really
happening.
Mountain Dew really give a shit about b-boys? No, man, they've rolled on to the next thing and the next thing, and they're gonna try and tell you how to act and how to dance and da 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 da. You know, so I'm about trying to create more acceptance, celebrate where we go, not throw out our history like, oh, been there, done that, we don't have to do that again. Well, maybe there's some things that are worth listening to. Maybe, you know, it's like maybe you should sit and listen to your grandfather. Like I sat with my grandfather before he died and heard stories about him in World War II. Well, I'm really glad I did, you know, because then you don't get the chance later on, because all them cats are dying. You know,
and not only that, you can learn something and appreciate your life right now when they tell you they probably ate a can of tuna in a week in World War II.
Yeah.
When you're here hoarding tons of tuna in your closet, like,
yeah,
and you appreciate certain things, and you're like, wow, man, like I do not want to go back to those dark days.
And as opposed to feeling the world or life owes you something, because like I always say, like, let's be honest, the world's unfair. Good people die. Children get hit by cars. Like, shit happens. But the world also doesn't owe you anything. So you get to sit back expecting that, like, well, I deserve that latest iPhone or whatever. You don't deserve shit. Like, I'm just saying, you know, like you gotta work.
I'm laughing because I have a daughter, she's 27, and I remember her talking to me about, like, but I deserve it. I'm like, what?
Right.
Like that same thing you just said. I just saw her face pop up when you said that. So
it's just a different mentality. But like, I don't feel like we're preparing young people for the world, even in hip hop and stuff. It used to have so much more promise, and maybe we can bring it back and celebrate some of those things. I think,
and that's why I like to have these conversations so people could be aware. You know, a brother like yourself that's been around, you've seen the 80s, you've seen the mid 80s, you've seen the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, 2000, mid 2000. Look, we're 2023. I think that as a dad, as yourself, everything you've witnessed, I think you have an idea of what's missing, what used to be, what we don't see now. And that's why I asked you that question, because it's so important to bring back that energy and that feeling of, like, you want to have your kids in hip hop, because maybe you don't have that dad. And maybe, you know, the things that it did for you, even with your son, you're so inspired, and you wouldn't be Buddah who you are right now, even the way you're thinking, even the how you know, the compassion you have for others. Maybe that would have not been in you, because all these things that happen in your life happened for a reason, and you are where you are right now.
And sometimes time's got to pass, because you know, I remember I was down on myself when I was 30, and I'd lived really hard doing a lot of crazy stuff between 20 and 30. But then I was unemployed, and I was kind of down, like, well, maybe I've been a fool and I've been backpacking, you know, but maybe just more time has to pass so that you can actually reflect on your life and kind of go, no, these threads connect in lots of different ways. And I'm actually happy about this piece. You know, the thing I think about, we're having a lot more discussions, especially with mid-schoolers, about is we're giving up the beauty of what a crew meant. And I don't mean just a crew to win. I mean, like, you know, the family aspect. Skill Methods was a family. Massive Monkeys was a family. CFM is a family. You know what I mean? New York City Breakers is a family. It's like, so now when all the contests tend to be individuals and stuff, like me and Wayne were interviewed yesterday by some people, and Wayne was talking about his tough home life, so well, mom's an alcoholic, child protection involved, be a takeaway, so some tough shit. Well, with a crew, you always had a place to stay. You knew people always had your back. You knew like safety reasons, even emotionally, just somebody to talk to. You know what I mean? So that's a pretty serious thing that we're trying to give up on a bit. And I don't know exactly when that started to change. You know what I mean? When Super Cruise started to happen. Remember?
Yeah, I think that's early after Y2K, I would say, or maybe late 90s, because when I came in 93, I'm going to say 91, 92, 93, it's around there. I remember that crew thing meant so much. In fact, like you just mentioned something, you're homeless for the night, you stay at my house immediately. You're like, don't worry about it. Your crew, stay
It's
at my
not
place.
even consideration.
Yeah, let's say you're gonna go to a club and you don't got those fresh sneakers or those fresh shoes. I know immediately you will be like, oh, what size are yours? 10? Okay, I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's not the same now. Now it's like, oh, you can't make it? Oh, all right, I'll tell you all about it. And I'm like, wow. It's like
Right.
such a
So
big
we've given up something. And we just finished discussing and recognizing that a lot of early cats in hip hop grew up in fragmented families, maybe without dads involved in their lives. So they're already, maybe don't have that big brother. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, or whatever. So like the crew filled an important part of a void that existed out there.
Absolutely.
And those voids still exist today. There's a ton of fucking voids of people that, single moms struggling and like there's just a ton of this.
And the fact that the dad is not there, now you look towards the brother and the sister. Oh, dad is not here. Let me confide in my brother. Now the brother and the sister's not here. Now you're here like, man, you know what? I quit. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go into my high life, heroin, angel dust, and just trip and be in this world that, oh, what happened to Charlie? Well, his dad is not around. His brother and his sister's not around. You don't have nobody to talk to.
And it's hard to pull people back from that. I've got a very good friend of mine. His kids always talk about me like an uncle. This is more my group of friends around the canoeing, kayaking, camping thing. But like they've brought him back to life 3 times from fentanyl. I'm dreading that call where my nephew is gonna die, and so there's this
it's
story.
So whack to hear that. I hear that and it boils my blood.
Yeah. This is, anyways. We all need connections. We all need healing. Healing is a lifetime thing. The funny thing that me and Float were talking about was like, because he was agreeing with my ideas. I was like, but a lot of OGs, they'll never admit that they need some healing and stuff, but they might talk to another OG.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If another OG would open up and be supportive and give them some conversations, just like Float was willing to talk to me, and I was like, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? I can't tell you. I've had OGs. I'd be at a jam, and somebody come up to me and go, yo, my name is so-and-so, da-da-da-da-da. I've heard about you, and next thing you know, within 5 minutes, I'm like, they're confessing to me 2 murders that they've done.
Yeah.
Like some shit, right? That they've never been able to get off their chest. They know what's holding them back for whatever reason. They probably felt I was safe because I don't know them. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying there's a lot of people holding a lot of stuff.
Yeah, or if now they talk to you and they realize you went through some crazy stuff that they did and you dealt with it, how you dealt with it. Maybe you could bring up and say, I'm going to tell you what I did when I divorced my wife and she wanted to kill me. This is what I did. And it helped me out. then that guy could be like, oh, I never thought of that. And they go home 10 years later, they talk to you and they go, hey, Steve, thank you, man. I remember that conversation we had. Now I have a new wife. Things are better in my life. And I think it's very important.
Do you think it's the bravado? I don't know if it's like the hyper bravado that early b-boying and breaking brought to the table that makes it really tough for cats to kind of admit any weakness or any vulnerability on some shit to be able to talk about it, or just got to be super careful who they confide with. You know what I mean? Because it's like I didn't grow up in the Bronx, and I'm sure the Bronx has been a really tough environment.
It was crazy, but in Canada, you can't tell me that it's not places that are poor. Look, when it comes to financial situations in life, there's no discrimination against race.
Yeah.
It's going to hit you, whether you're white, black, purple, green. If you're going through it and guess what? Sometimes they're not around. There's a stigma of that most of the black people, they don't have their dads there. Maybe it is true. I don't know. But I know a lot of white people that their dads weren't around.
Yeah.
So
let me give you one example, because Rob, Beat Street Kid, and Kid Quick and my crew, both alcoholic moms, child protection involved. So Rob, Beat Street Kid, calls me one day and goes, Buddah, go buy Maclean's magazine. It's like Time magazine for Canada, or Canadian version, right? And there's the cover story is about sexual abuse, about Sheldon Kennedy, the famous hockey star, talking about being abused. He's NHL hockey, abused by his coach and stuff. But the full page story inside is Beat Street Kid from my crew, Rob. Wow. And the local priest, no, sorry, not the priest, the local, many cities it's the priest, but the local scout leader was preying on the kids who didn't have dads and used to take them up on the ski hills outside of Ottawa and abuse them. Rob got the courage to finally speak up. He's now 25 or whatever. He didn't confide in me or any of the crew. He just kept it, and he finally did. And so this whole full page story is about Rob. And as a result of him speaking up, national rules around police checks for anybody involved in Scouts and Cubs now all of a sudden happen because of him.
Wow.
Right? Because of Rob. So Rob is from incredible b-boy, a lot of rage, all them fast windmills. But the beautiful thing he said to me, he said, Buddah, you're one of the only men in my life who never took advantage of me in some way. And that I saw that kind of as my role, is like, I'll just be a straight shooter. I might be tough love once in a while with the crew because I'm older and this and that. I'll say what needs to be said. If you're being a stupid little punk, I'll tell you that. But I'll never take advantage of people financially. I won't never take people emotionally or whatever. So even that, how many people? I know a lot of people. I know a lot of young women in hip hop that have been sexually abused or raped and this and that. And we're drawn to this because we need some healing and this, like, and so like hiding this shit and never talking about it. I can pretty well promise you from all my experience working in this field and stuff like that will raise his head in any relationship that you try to have and make it problematic for you unless you get help and support. And so in hip hop, like my discussion with Flo was like, so are there creative ways that we can be supportive to each other if we don't trust going and talking to a counselor or something? You know what I mean? There's wise people that have no degrees that can help, that can talk to you, and
all it takes is a conversation, and maybe you get a answer that you've never heard from even your own therapist.
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, man, this guy's just my neighbor.
Yeah.
I just had a quick conversation. He sees me with a sad face and he just asked me, hey, what's going on? And you decided to say, you know what? I'm going to tell the neighbor how I feel.
Yeah.
And maybe the neighbor tells you the most amazing answer that it changes your life. And I think it has to do with more conversations. And again, that's why I do the show, to have a conversation. It's simple. You might disagree, or I may disagree with things, but let's have a conversation. That's the beauty of our voices. Of maybe in
You
Canada,
don't
there's
know what you
something.
don't know, right? Like if you never have that conversation, then and again, this is the kind of thing I'm kind of like, don't be fucking so hardcore that it's only hip hop. You know what I mean? It's a hip hop mentality. It's like
Yes.
so if you're missing out on, for me, if I would have prevented me from being connected with nature and finding the anger release from surfing and kayaks, what a shame that would be. Because I was so hardcore in hip hop that I was like, no, it ain't fucking hip hop. I'm not
But
letting
it's
the rest.
bigger. It's a door that opened for you to be inspired to kayaking and the mental toughness
Yeah,
that it took you to learn that windmill to head, that you kept falling and hitting yourself, burning and breaking things. Then now you're kayaking and you're at a point in your life that you're in the deep waters of the struggle, that it'll remind you trying that freeze, trying, and you're like, man, this has the same, and it'll take you back to the 20-year-old Buddah that you're like, wow, this is tough, but I know what tough is,
yeah.
and I know I'm not gonna die. So
Yeah,
let me keep going.
it's that resiliency, you know, because it's like life is still gonna. I get emotionally triggered and hurt like anybody else, but I'm actually now at peace with my vulnerabilities.
So you
You
know
know
how
what I
to
mean?
deal with it, your reaction
Yeah,
to it.
and I'm not embarrassed about it in my vulnerabilities. You know what I mean? Like that's a big difference with lots of people in hip hop. I was like, I ain't fucking showing any vulnerabilities on anything, right? Because vulnerability is a weakness.
So do you feel?
I feel like talking vulnerability is a strength.
Yes, it is.
You flip it,
Absolutely. But
you
right
know?
now, I don't know if people are being taught that it's not, or maybe there's so much ego driven individuals out there that they don't want to be vulnerable. They want to look like the best of the best on social media and everything that they do. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. There's never nothing that has to do with suffering. I've learned everything when it comes to me being at my lowest. So it's one of those things that these kids are maybe not learning. Again, back to the same conversation. These leaders, these fathers in the hip hop culture that don't spend that much time having a conversation. I know in competitions, for example, let me ask you this question. In the past 23 years, let's just speak on the past 23 years from 2000 and on. In all the events, jams, anything that has to do with hip hop, what is the thing mostly highlighted in every event? Out of all the elements, you got the MCs, you got the B-boys, the dancers, you got the graffiti, the DJ, and then the fifth element knowledge, your higher self, like just knowing who you are, the spirituality aspect. In the past 23 years, what do you see the most that is highlighted?
I feel like it's the danger zone that we moved away from some of that. I was watching my old videos of jams I used to put on. So I started bringing Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa back together, and I did the first city battles. I watched those, and a city battle between Toronto and Montreal might go an hour. It's like those early Battle of the Year ones,
Oh
right? It's
yeah,
like a
yeah.
big
Battle
mob,
Squad
and
versus
the
like
cipher
second
is
to
like
none.
people stacked 6 people high trying to see. But that energy and the vibe and the excitement and the challenging and the moves that went down, and yet still the positive energy that you felt when you watched that video. And I remember it was like we didn't have trophies or nothing. I didn't even pick a winner. But people came always because, one, I wasn't trying to make money off a jam. Out of town dancers always got in free because I knew they already paid coin to come, you know. But they wanted to come because I think they had this sense of community and how uplifting and exciting and exhilarating that can be, and that even though it was still a battle, you know, like I was, you know, micro footage, like my old crew were there and we're battling too with Ottawa, and like Trevor goes out and does a drill head spin in Migas's face, and then Migas responds, but Migas just gives him love because he's like, yo, he just fucking tried to come and burn me with a drill, you know. And that so I don't know if that exists so much more. People are telling me, like, for our 40th anniversary this summer, you know, Buddah bring back the city battles and stuff, you know, because the vibe is very different. Everybody else is so fixated on picking a winner and ramping up who's the Red Bull champ and who's going to the Olympics and who's this and that. And not many jams happen like this that feel like that kind of electric vibe that wasn't pre-scripted or nothing, you know what I mean? And they're after, you know, afterwards, like, then we're all clubbing, and then you flip the music. You actually might play Marvin, you know what I mean? Like, if somebody puts on Sexual Healing, for me, I don't even need to ask a lady to dance. I'm just gonna dance because that song is so powerful for me, you know what I mean? And so, like, it's like, where did you ever think that you had to be hardcore b-boy 24/7? You know, like relax. You just did the hype cipher. Now just chill and dance and talk to new friends and shoot the shit, and, you know.
I think that's the having fun part of peace, unity, love, and having fun. Because if you come into a jam with a peaceful mind, already your mind is like, at the moment that I battle, maybe it's the toughest crew, but you come in peace, you just showing your skills. It builds that unity. So now we're going from peace, unity. Then that love comes around immediately. That love is there. And after the jam, let's have some fun now.
Yeah, I love the way you describe that, because you're right. That's kind of how that recipe all connects together, you know, and it doesn't feel like a prescripted thing that's kind of set up. It happens and flows naturally, which is like a beautiful, almost like a life force or some shit, you know.
It is. Like, how long you been doing this? How long you been in this? If you could say the years.
Well, this summer is the 40th anniversary of our crew, you know, and I took some years off here and there when my children were younger, you know, but I've been involved, but like putting on events and giving back to the community in different ways, you know, and like the prison work we do now. People don't know. I can't film it. I filmed a little bit, you know, I had the kids wear masks, but like for identity reasons. But like, if me and my team can work with, like, half the kids we're working it with are in for murder. Like, these aren't kids. These are some big boys, some hardcore cats. And we can take them to a place in 1 week where we do this intensive, where they've let their guard down and they're willing to test the waters of being vulnerable again and healing, as opposed to, because these are like adult prisons, but they're youth prisons, but it's the same tension, you know what I mean, that people are feeling. And I'm like, so there's a proven gift that we have to offer whether you're doing bucket drumming or you're teaching them some b-boying or whatever, where they can get hope again in their lives. I feel like hip hop can give hope for your own personal life. You know, oh, I can be a part of a community. Oh, I can control some shit. You know, I can control even a small thing. I can control the way my body moves. I can, you know, a lot of people feel like they have no control in their life, and so they're only always reacting. That's fucking unsustainable, man. Like, you get my age, you're gonna be mad tired. You know.
Now, do you think it has to do, again, we go back to that father, that leader in the culture that is teaching people how to be resilient, teaching these kids how to react? You can say it has to do a lot of reacting. That, let's say somebody battles a kid now and which I saw. I just started laughing at one of my boys. He posted. He said that now you can't even give the cock to a person because then they'll sue you for sexual harassment.
Yeah. Because I was known for that. I used to always do like the front thing.
Which is,
You know,
I lost it when I saw
yeah,
that. I'm like, now
you'll
you
be
can't do
canceled.
that.
You'll be canceled,
You'll
right?
be canceled. And you were talking about the prison. Is this part of it right there?
Yeah. So we put mask on them there, you know, so we could do a photo. But like, you know, I have incredible teams when we work with them. But this was this, you know, these are the kids who are forgotten, but they're still kids. Some get bumped up to adult and then they may stay in there, you know, but a lot come back into our world. So like, what the fuck are we doing to help them when they transition out? Guess what? You talk privately to them. A lot of them are worried about, oh, I let my mom down. Will she forgive? You know what I mean? Like just fucking basic home stuff that you know, their impulse got them in trouble. They shiv somebody in a bad situation or they're high or something. And so I'm really proud of this. Like we have been told by other people that we're the largest group therapy healing projects in the history of Canada's corrections. And guess
That's
what?
amazing.
We're all hip hop heads doing it.
Wow. Who are those brothers and sisters in the bottom from
So
left to right?
so on the left, that's B-Boy Switch out of Toronto, B-Boy Frost. He's got a little gold on his hat. That's Handles. He's from Maximum Efficiency Crew in Toronto. He's also one of the better B-Boy DJs. That's Nene, the woman in the middle. She also does like whacking and stuff. Me, and then Troy. And Troy's an interesting cat. He was a b-boy, but he was also like he's the bucket drummer for the Toronto Raptors, and he toured the world with the musical Stomp as the lead in the musical
Oh,
Stomp.
that's
You know what I
dope.
mean?
Yeah,
So
I
we
got
got
to
like,
see them.
but
I got
like
to see them in New York.
yeah, like incredible, right? So bucket drumming and stuff, like to me, I'm kind of like, well, it's still fucking. It feels like hip hop to me, baby. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like the anger getting filtered out through the body, out through with the drums. So, and you know what's interesting in that is a lot of people didn't want us working in the prisons. There's like a blue wall, just like you could argue there's a blue wall with the cops and stuff protecting themselves and things. You know what I mean? We just slowly, methodically prove them wrong because they never used to let more than 10 kids in a gym together. Because, like, let's say in Winnipeg, when we were there, they told us there are 27 different gangs represented amongst all the youth in the facilities. And some of the gangs have like total blood wars of killings back and forth happening between them. And so they would never let them come together. My one project there, I had 80 kids, 27 gang members, 27 gangs all in the gym at the same time. And we never had any gang signs go up all week. I love that the kids proved them wrong, the wall, the blue wall, the custodial, the security, that they're not animals. They can manage their shit.
Do you feel is that everyone found something that everyone was interested in? Like hip hop is in the middle, the core, and everyone is kind of like, I like hip hop. I like hip hop. Well, we all like that, so
Yeah,
let's.
and I think we vary it up a lot. So they'll be, you know, we give them books, so we get them journaling, you know, we get them writing poetry. It could be a poem, it could be rap, it could be, you know, then we'll go on to something different. And I do the discussions about about forgiveness or about drugs and alcohol. Did you know this about gangs or whatever, right? So it's how we balance it out with all the different activities and how they learn that they actually have some talent and they actually have some laughter, like spontaneous laughter. Nobody laughs because they're all too serious. You know, by the time you get to the second day or certainly the third day, they come in together as a group and go, no, we're all just fucking young cats and we're going to have a laugh about something Buddah said or whatever, you know? Like, so the tension goes down. Like we get told that when we're there, one of the ways they measure how shit's hitting the fan in facilities is something called suicide ideation. That's like how many kids are actively in lockup trying to figure out how to kill themselves, steal a paper clip or whatever, open a vein up or something, and we're always told that when we're there for the week, suicide ideation is at its lowest point in the entire year of the facility, because we get them in a different headspace and something's happening. I remember once we were in Winnipeg, and at the end we invite their parents to come, so they're proud seeing Johnny is doing his thing, and they get to mingle. And then at the end they got to run the dogs and stuff in case anybody's passed any drugs or things, right? So the one big gang is Manitoba Warriors, and they keep them all in one unit by themselves, and they're leaving, and they turn. Imagine 15 of them turn, and they yell back to my team. They go, "We love you, Blueprint." Now, if you understand the mentality and the toughness of these gang kids, for them in 1 week to publicly state something like that, that's a different headspace, man. So I'm really proud of it. It's not like
I congratulate you on doing that. We need more of that in this world, because I see. I'm not gonna say I'm a brother that's been around forever, but with the 45 years that I've been on this earth, I have noticed the decline, and the decline of just people forgetting the kids and those that don't have a dad. And, like, for example, do you see kids there that kind of reminded you of yourself when you were younger?
Yeah, and like I said, when I tell my own story, the one about the bullying and drugs and alcohol and the roller skating. Well, I tell that the first morning, and at lunch I'll have at least 10 of those kids come up to me and go, "But I felt like you're telling my story." The part where they're connecting is the fucking rage that I felt, wanting to off people and stuff. And when you're young, plus you got teenage hormones rolling, like, it's not really all your fault that you don't fully understand and have control about all that. There's been all these life circumstances that have built up and pounded on top of each other that have got you to this place. So to unpack it doesn't happen easily. I always look at it as like a hairball, so like if a hairball's got 1,000 hairs making a hairball, like, how do you unpack that? Well, you can't just pull one at a time. This hairball here is this issue. This one's this issue. This one's it. I feel like hip hop can elevate you when you're in such a deficit. You need something, whether it's hip hop or something else, to elevate you holistically, to lift you up, so you can, because at this point you can't even do knowledge of self on anything. It's too painful and too chaotic, too much of a hairball. But if you lift yourselves up and you go, "I'm starting to feel good about myself." Oh, people cheered when I did my poem. Oh, people, I did a routine with cats I didn't think I liked, and now we're actually talking and stuff. It creates the foundation for future healing.
That's such an amazing way of you putting it together, because that is absolutely 100% what you're saying is so correct on that, because I see how the world is going. I see, I work with kids too, and I'm part of this place called organization called Child of This Culture. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah,
right
you see it. It's dope. I want one of those.
Okay. Now that you said that, Child of This Culture is basically,
I'm gonna send you a Blueprint shirt.
Oh, dope. And we work with a lot of kids. We go and promote through the hip hop. Check them out, childofThisculture.com. And I'm considered passport to hip hop. Basically, the person that opens the door and teaching people what this is all about.
Right.
Because some people, they don't even believe this exists. They don't believe that Blueprint exists until they know. And you know that. So when I ask you about these kids, if you could go back to being a kid again, what would you tell yourself? Like that kid.
The first thing I do when I go back and I think about, I'll tell you the first thing I do. Now me, older me, gives that scared little angry kid a hug. I don't even tell him anything. I give him a hug. And then I might tell him quietly, you're good enough. You're going to be okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, even now, even I don't want to sound corny like I'm fucking really into the meditation. I'm a bad meditator, but I'm trying to do some of this.
Hey, the point is practicing it.
Yeah, you know, and I do, the more I research it and look into it and stuff, the more I see the wisdom, even if it's all the ancient wisdom around this topic and stuff. But I addressing my own childhood trauma, I very carefully have come up with 3 statements that I do with my breathing. So if I'm at the airport and I'm stressed, because I'm standing in the line because they've lost my baggage or whatever, you know what I mean? There's a ton of these moments. So I'll breathe in. I'm a good person. I'll hold. I'm a good person who cares deeply is my hold breath. And my breathe out is, and I'm good enough. I bet that, or parts of that, work for a lot of people. Because we tell ourselves, because of our old trauma and stuff, we're not good enough. We tell ourselves, even hip hop, that we constantly got to prove ourselves. And I'm not saying that's not some good aspect to elevate yourself, but you're not elevating yourself if you're always down on yourself. You know what I mean? So the part of me that goes, and I'm good enough, is that let the tension go and be at peace with yourself on some of this shit.
I like that a lot. I actually do another one, but I like that. I'm gonna use that one day just to see how it feels. I usually do when I'm in a moment of stress or anxiety, or especially you're gonna board a plane and maybe you already got on 3 planes and now you know you gotta get another plane. And I don't know, it's so weird. I have this trauma. I guess it's after I saw La Bamba with Richie Valens. After I saw that movie, for some reason, every time I'm board a plane, I'm like, I'm an artist. Okay, okay. Am I going down on this one? So when I start feeling that way, or I start thinking negative, one of the things that I do, I could be, and it doesn't have to be in the airport, but airport is pretty stressful already. What I immediately do, I start looking around and I tell myself, look for 5 to 10 beautiful, positive things that are around you.
Mm.
Look around. So immediately I start looking around and I see a beautiful baby, innocent baby, smiling or giggling. Immediately brings a smile and it quiets the noise down. Then I keep looking around and I just start seeing, just like, wow, look where we at now, 2023. There's countries that I've been to that don't have light right now. And we're in AC right now. Man, I gotta appreciate this.
So
So I start thinking,
you got a toolkit for gratefulness. And I love what you've just said, because there are always small little things. We just become blind to appreciating them. Whether it's a smile or wherever it is, if we practice gratefulness and gratefulness in hip hop, then it feeds gratefulness, more gratefulness, and it takes away all the pressures of living too much in the future and the worries of that shit. You know, which is the wisdom that we always talk about being present. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was going, well, you know, like on the one hand, b-boys get being present, because when we're most present is when we're fucking fully absorbed in the music and doing the cipher.
yeah,
Right? So the trick is, how do you not only get your being present in the cipher, because the cipher ain't happening all the time. How do you get to be present in the cipher of life on an ongoing basis, which will then feed gratefulness, which will then feed the negativity? You know, because if you're feeling grateful, you don't feel the need to put somebody else down.
absolutely.
You know,
I,
so
I love what you said right there. And I love this. Let me tell you, this is one of my favorite ones, and I'm gonna tell you why. We mentioned we're advocating health, mental health. We're talking about the kids, bringing hope. All these things are so eminent to the culture. It's so important to mention. It's so critical to save these kids. There's kids right now that are going through the worst of the worst. You just mentioned it, Buddah, when you were a kid. How many Buddhas are out there right now with this rage? They just, oh my God, and they don't know where to utilize it.
Yeah.
They don't know where to put it in. It doesn't have to be hip hop, but at least let's start that conversation.
You know, we I think you'll dig this metaphor of a toolkit, and I like that. I don't try to talk like social worker-y to kids and this and that. You know, I'm just me. It might feel like your grandpa sitting down trying to have a caring conversation with you or something, right?
And that's also important.
Yeah.
Some people don't have a grandfather.
I know.
Some people have never met their grandfather. Like, that's so important just to know, hey, I'm going to talk to grandpa. Like, oh, man, that's amazing.
The metaphor we use is like I love Nas One Mic, and I love his video because when you watch his video, he transitions. The obvious at the beginning is Nas uses his microphone. It's his deal. But then it changes and you see young women and young people and stuff all over the world kind of going, all I need is my one mic to change the world. So it's a metaphor, which is what I tell people all the time. So this is a teaching lesson for us with the kids. It's like, and I think it's a teaching lesson for people in hip hop. Don't be so hardcore. So it's like, how do you cultivate a mentality that's open to discovering new one mics in your life? Because that's where you're going to have things that'll save your life. So let's say your guitar playing is your one mic. Well, you ain't always got your guitar. You're riding the bus and some stressful guy is fucking causing grief with you, and you can't just play guitar, or you can't always go for a walk in your relationship. Is, you know, although walks are a great thing. So I get the kids to plan and visualize and plan out what are new one mics that they might enjoy and try. And I'm kind of like, you know, what if your girlfriend says, you know, she rides horses, she wants to take you horseback riding. You've just met her, you think you love her, but you're scared of horses. Well, you should still maybe go because you don't know what you don't know. Maybe you will actually love the horseback riding. So the more of a Swiss Army knife we got of one mics, the more we're open to trying new things at any age in your life. You know, it's like some of my team, they challenged me and said, Buddah, you always talk a good game about one mics, but why aren't you spitting some rhymes? Well, guess what? I started writing spoken word poetry. I've been writing about my son. I've been writing about being present. I've been writing about things from the heart. I've been writing pieces and spitting them to the kids in the presents and stuff, you know? So this is an old dog learning some new tricks. But
well, if you know the word rapping is talking.
Yeah.
You're giving advice, you're talking, you're rapping.
Yeah. And it's like, why do we get stuck with these ideas? Like, you should be a multifaceted human being with creativity that flows in all different ways, whether it's cooking or whatever. But these things make us feel good about ourselves. But we don't feel good about ourselves if we fucking OD'd on fentanyl. You know what
Definitely
I mean? Like, and then it spirals. We feel even badder about ourselves, so we do it again.
And you wouldn't know because you'll be gone. If you die, you would not know if what happened. What's the consequences?
Yeah, and the collateral damage that you did, the pain it causes all the other people that were still in your life and stuff. You know. So, anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there because we all the time talk about how do you get an openness that's not closed off, that, oh, I only like this, you know, because sports is a great one. Like, you know, you go slap hockey pucks all night, you feel that tired, good tired, but some anger is left you. Like, I'd do a child abuse investigation, and I will put the kayak on the roof of my car before I went to work because I knew I had to interview a little girl who had probably been raped by her grandfather. And I knew that I actually couldn't come home and see my own children because I would carry that anger and rage with me. I mean, I used to sit across the table and I would visualize, like, I'm going to grab your head and give you a headbutt and break your nose because that's how angry I am. Can't, because then the guy gets off, doesn't look good in court and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But So then now I'm carrying that anger. But then when I'd be on the wave, I'd be the last one off the wave. It'd be getting dark at night, and I'm surfing, and I'm in my boat so tight that I could literally visualize the anger, the blackness from the world going out my body, out my knees, and disappearing in the wave. And then I exhaust myself 2-3 hours paddling, and I go home, and guess what? I can be a loving dad. But we should all have tons of one mics in our lives, because the constant that we do know is unpredictable shit will happen that'll cause you stress, whether it's money or other people or relationships or bullying or you know what I mean. There's a multitude of this, and it's unpredictable. So we got to prepare ourselves. And if listening to music chills you out, then know that, recognize that, make a plan so that you aren't always responding in impulse.
So you mentioned about the black cloud just leaving through your body. How many times you experienced that through breaking?
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like there's like almost a spiritualism. Even when I used to go to clubs, I would point. You used to go to clubs and you maybe be a little conscious, like, are people checking me out? Are there some ladies? Whatever kind of thing. But then after a while, I'm married. I'm just going to clubs, hang with the boys. I'm not interested. I'm not doing that. I'm there to dance. I could almost feel like I would close my eyes sometimes and dance for like 5 minutes by myself with my eyes closed, just fully feeling the music, almost like a beam of light leaving your body out your head or something, just in the zone, because you're free. You're free of caring about, who's that old guy dancing with the hat? You're not self-conscious about that shit. Fuck, I own this shit. This is me time. This is me and Marvin time, or whatever it is,
Absolutely. Now, if you could be remembered for one thing, and I know it's difficult, what would it be? If it's something, if you can't write everything, it's just one thing that you need to, and it could be a long sentence. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. One thing, what would it be? 50 years, 60 years from now, people look up Buddah, Canadian Floor Masters, and the first thing they're going to see is like, oh, man, I didn't know that. Or what would it be, something you would like to be remembered for?
On a very personal tip, I think I want to be remembered by my children as being a flawed but stand-up dad who's just always tried to be there and still work on himself. And I could roll with some different about, like, I'm happy that I've advanced maybe some ideas and conversations on mental health and healing and all, how this is in the mix with hip hop. That's an important one. I feel like a lot of other people have wisdom in there, but maybe haven't felt free enough to talk about it or share about it. But I think that's really important wisdom. We've talked a lot about that. Yeah, and I just, yeah, I think it's on a personal tip again, it's that you can readjust your values. And my son is, for the long, is the most important thing. All my kids are, what I mean? But my daughters are okay. He needs the care and love, and it reciprocates. I get as much as I give, but I think that's a good role model thing for parents of any child.
So you would say you gave it your all, you gave it your best to make your kids proud of you as a dad.
and I would say sometimes people complain that you can't do both. It's too busy, so you got to give up on hip hop. I've pretty consistently still been involved. Like now, some of the young B-boys, mid-schoolers having kids, they're like, I don't know how you did it, Buddah. I mean, I had 3 kids, and I still ran jams, and I still danced, and I still held down a full-time job as a social worker, and I still contributed writing and speaking or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's hard. I remember, by the time my son was 6, I'd been to Children's Hospital emergency ward 100 times because they congratulated us. Put that stress on a parent. I used to go to work and social work with my chin sleeping the night before on the crib, counting his breaths, trying to figure is now the time to go to emergency, and still go to work the next day. And I'm not looking for, but I'm just kind of like, life is some hard, even me and my wife use that to congratulate each other, kind of go, we've been through some shit and we still here,
That's so beautiful. And I congratulate you in so many ways. And I commend you because not a lot of people could be vulnerable to speak their mind and say what they've been through, and they've changed, and they're willing to change for the better and continue doing it. Because you could change, but then you could stop and go back to your old ways.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly practicing like you practice your meditation, you might not be an expert, but at least you're attempting it. And I think that's one of the things that I believe is so necessary, that even if it's just trying to meditate, trying to find the peace in your mind and of how to react. And I believe you've done it well. And what's the oldest? How old is the oldest?
My oldest is 35. My daughter.
Look at that. 35 years. Come on.
And I joke, I tell people, I've been together with my wife almost 40 years. And I only had to leave the house once. She kicked me out once. She was right to kick me out because my dad had just died and I was angry and I was yelling all the time around the kid. But I fixed my ass and humbled my ass and came back a stronger husband 4 months later.
Beautiful.
And she was right to ask me to leave, but it's kind of like marriages aren't easy either. You know what I mean? Like we all have our own baggage and stuff. And I think it's the willingness to try and still commit.
And I think the beauty in it is not giving up, still staying strong and saying, we got more. You're 63, you said?
64.
64.
Well, this summer, 64. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, what I hope to do, just because I know a lot of other old guys will see this. I'm really excited to go to Paris. We're going to figure out how to go. Me and my crew, maybe 4 of us from the original crew. I want to bring DKC Freeze, who was from the most famous old school crew in Montreal called New Energy. We all want to go to the Olympics that summer, even if we can't afford to get tickets, because I know what's going to happen. There's going to be like 100 old guys from many countries converging. And the conversations, you got to be there to get the conversations, because the conversations organically are what are going to happen, when you meet old cats from Enemy Squad and people around the world, because we're going to be so happy to see each other. It's going to be like that couch situation I told you with Float and Clown on a bigger scale in Paris, right? And so the other thing is, my kids already tell me I got to go. They're like, Dad, because that summer I turned 65, that'll be happening in the Olympics.
Hey, so I'm going to see you there.
That's what I'm saying.
See you there. Childhood's coach is going to be there, even if we don't go in.
That's right.
Paris is going to be infested of B-boys and B-girls, promoters. You're going to see it everywhere. I've had dreams of this. Yeah. And I know it's going to be crazy. Like, oh, we can't get in. It's all good.
We're all going to this bar, and it's going to be a hangout of 30 of us from different countries, having some beer and wings, watching on the big screen.
There's going to be ciphers in different corners, different places. It's going to be amazing. And I can't wait.
That backstory celebrating is going to be off the hook. So I'm glad you're going too, man.
Yes. And like I said, we got to do a part 2 because there's so much to share. But Buddah, 40 years in this, it's very difficult to put it even in 24 hours. We could talk for 24 hours and we will not be done with the stuff that you've done in 40 years. Like
Mm.
which is tripping me out because I just said 30 years in this, and I was like, oh my God, 30 years. It tripped me out when I was just having a conversation. You know Honey Rockwell?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Honey Rock was one of my first teachers, and let me tell you, earlier you were mentioning how you have some new b-boys that are having kids and they don't know how to do it. I was just having a conversation with her about that there were so many b-girls that just dropped out, stopped breaking, just because they got in a relationship. They didn't even have kids. Honey Rockwell had 3 kids, traveling the world, teaching, performing, running a school, like doing so much with 3 kids, and she's still doing it.
yeah.
It's crazy. So it's like
And we
when
got
you
to
love something.
celebrate that, because by celebrating telling her story, you're giving courage to the other young women who are feeling fearful.
Yes, and you've done it. You've done this, and you're an example. And now that you mentioned that, I immediately thought of Honey, and I was like, "Wow, there's others that do this as well." So it's so beautiful to just hear your story. But this is what we're gonna do right now, and please do a part 2 because I want to show so much footage. I want to show so much things that you've done, and like I said, it's so difficult. But I'm gonna give you your own screen. I'm going to ask you, what are you up to these days? Where can people find you online? Connect with you? Take it away, my brother.
So I'm going to give you more flowers. No, this time I'm going to send it back to my man Flash. I'm going to say, on this one hand, I got a bottle of Canadian maple syrup. And over here, we got our a bouquet of bright red maple leaves from our fall. That's your
Okay.
flowers. All right.
Awesome.
These days, honestly, I'm being dad to my son. We had to be careful with COVID because his holes in his heart, and Down's kids have less immunities and things. So I'm being father. I'm starting to write more. I'm going to write a book called 100% Dangerous about the way I grew up. Short stories mostly for my kids, but I think threads will probably emerge about ideas from my life experiences that turned into kind of like, well, how does that work in the real world or in programming? And I ask myself the question all the time: what makes me happy? And dance still makes me happy, and camping and nature make me happy. And so, what am I going to do? I'm going to try and do more of that, because I want to focus on shit that makes me happy. Maybe I only got 20 years to live. I got diabetes and some things happening and stuff. So it's like you can't take life for granted. People can just Google online. There's like lots of old school videos if you want to have a laugh of me and my crew dancing over the days. And there is a website, Blueprint for Life, all one word, .ca, and there you can see videos of us working in prisons and us working in communities, and some of the ideas of what we do. That's it. Hopefully I'm not dying too soon.
You're gonna stay because you're resilient and you've mastered the hitting rock bottom, coming back up. Some people can't do that. Some people stay there forever. So again, thank you very much. And it's just so awesome to hear that even in Canada, there was such a energetic force of hip hop just went up there, and you guys took it serious, and you guys created some history. And I know that you guys were probably like basically the OGs, the old schoolers, to then Boogie Brats, the other crew, Supernatural, that came in later. Maybe that's another story for another day. But thank you, man. I'm just so excited, man. Just knowing that I have a conversation with you, and I learned so much, and I'm thrilled with hope. And there's a lot of brothers out there that think like you, and it's like have fresh of breath there, knowing that there's other brothers that are still doing this, and they're out there like promoting positivity and hope, even in the prison, even in just where your kids. And I know you're probably a walking billboard of just knowledge, and anyone you come across to that's probably feeling some type of way, immediately you go to your automatic ways of just. And listen, we just spoken for 3 hours, and I could tell that you're probably that type of dude that will literally give an advice to a stranger because they're feeling some type of way. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, of course, man. I would like to just end by saying, well, you got your flowers and your maple syrup, but you know what I mean? That it doesn't have to be the biggest and the most grandiose efforts and this and that. I think that's a fallacy that we give too much shine to big pitch thing. That's kind of like a capitalistic thing. You know what I mean? If you're one cat just mentoring on a personal level in like a big brother b-boy way, some young kid, that's highly significant. And I'm giving you praise for doing that. You're giving them praise for doing that. You know what I mean? But you're not doing it for the praise. Like if everybody had that mentality of some small ways of giving back, and you didn't need to have the flowers for it. You know what I mean? That's a powerful force. That's a powerful force. I hope we tell more of that story. Think about that media-wise when the Olympic is telling stories. Most of the world doesn't fucking know that story.
No.
Doesn't know the story about actually how deeply people in hip-hop care. They actually do care. They may be flawed and have a hard time knowing what to do with their caring and how to, you know what I mean? That's a separate issue. But there are a lot of beautiful hearts that care deeply, or this shit would have disappeared a long time ago.
Absolutely. And I believe that you need someone to mentor you and guide you and kind of give you the guide of saying, pass it on, pass it forward. I had a mentor. I consider him my entertainment dad. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a locker skater. He goes by Alex Kid Dynamo. And he passed away at 63 in 2018. And he was a big, big figure in my life. To this day, he is. And I just watch old videos of him. And I believe that once you have a mentor, someone that kind of touches you deep, that they see that you had a struggle in your childhood, and they also had a struggle in their childhood, and they're giving you, the wisdom and telling you this is the way you have to do it. But with that power, that responsibility you're carrying with yourself, you got to also pass it forward. And that's why I love doing this. And I want to continue giving people this platform so they could talk and express themselves, and even the young generation so they could listen and say, hey, pass it on. So thank you for saying that, because it's very easy to get misinterpreted nowadays that you're being when you have genuine love for people, compassion, they see you kind of like, man, this love is too real. It might be fake. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So some people could push that away when you're really genuine. You come, hey, let me help you. What do you need? You're missing this, you're missing that. Some people will look at you weird. He's too loving. He's too straightforward. So I'm just going to continue showing love, man. And
everybody's imperfect, man. We just got to create a little bit more space with less judgment for everybody. Little more space will loosen the tension, and the good shit can rise again.
Yes, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we have Steven Leafloor, aka Buddah, Canadian floor master. I go by the name of Flashback. This is history worth listening to. Once again, thank you, Buddah. It's such an honor, and I hope we do this again. But ladies and gentlemen, good night, y'all. Peace.
Yeah.